Step into a world where the stories unfold. Words paint the pictures and the dreams are retold. Every rhyme, every line, a new tale to tell. Welcome to my channel where the magic dwells. I'm the poetic storyteller, spinning worlds with my voice. Every heart, every listener, I invite you to rejoice. Let's wander through the verses, let the rhythm set us free. On the poetic storyteller, come and dream with me. From legends and fables to moments so true, each story's a journey I'm sharing with you. Adventure and wonder, laughter and tears, we'll travel together through stories and years. I'm the poetic storyteller, spinning worlds with my voice. Every heart, every listener, I invite you to rejoice. Let's wander through the verses, let the rhythm set us free. On the poetic storyteller, come and dream with me. For like, share and follow, there's so much to explore. Open your mind and let your spirit soar. With every new story, our community grows. The poetic storyteller, where imagination flows. I'm the poetic storyteller, spinning worlds with my voice. Every heart, every listener, I invite you to rejoice. Let's wander through the verses, let the rhythm set us free. I'm the poetic storyteller, come and dream with me. Yeah, the poetic storyteller, come and dream with me.
Hey Poetics, I'm so glad you're here tonight. Welcome to my very first live session, and thank you for joining me as we explore love in all its forms. The 4 stories I'm about to share aren't your typical love stories. They're messy, emotional, intense, and real. The kind of love that leaves a mark, whether it's healthy, toxic, beautiful, or painful. Each story reveals a different side of what it means to truly love. Even though this session is pre-recorded, I'm right here with you in the live chat, so don't be shy. Share your thoughts, reactions, and emotions with me as we go. Let's dive in. First up, we have The Day I Met Nicholas Hart. This story will hit you in the heart. 16-year-old Lila meets Nicholas during a summer rainstorm, and what starts as a beautiful, spontaneous connection ends in heartbreak. Nicholas has a secret, and his time with Lila is part of his bucket list before he's gone. Love isn't always about forever. Sometimes it's about making the most of the time you have. Day I Met Nicholas Hart. Chapter 1. The Day It Rained. June 5th. Dear Diary, I don't even know why I'm writing this. Mom got me this journal for my birthday last month, and it's just been sitting on my shelf collecting dust. But today, something happened. Something I can't explain. And I need to put it somewhere before it floats away. Like one of those dandelion seeds that never find ground. It was raining today. Not the gentle kind that makes everything smell fresh, but the angry kind that turns the world gray and makes you question why you even bothered with mascara. School had just let out for summer, and I was that weird mix of happy and lost that comes with having 3 months of freedom stretching ahead of you. I ducked into that little corner store near Westwood Beach to wait out the worst of it. You know, the one it smells like saltwater taffy and sunscreen? I was just killing time flipping through one of those celebrity magazines when I looked out the window and saw him. A boy, maybe a year older than me, sitting alone on a bench facing the ocean. No umbrella, no raincoat. Nothing, just sitting there letting the rain soak through his clothes like he couldn't even feel it. His head was down, dark hair plastered to his forehead, and something about the way his shoulders curved forward made my chest hurt. I don't know what came over me. I'm not the type to talk to strangers, especially not boys who look like they belong in those indie movies Claire is always watching. But before I could think twice, I was pushing open the door, my umbrella unfurling as I crossed the street. I stood in front of him for a few seconds before he noticed me. When he finally looked up, I almost took a step back. His eyes, diary. His eyes were this impossible blue, like someone had taken the deepest part of the ocean and trapped it behind glass. They were red-rimmed, like maybe he'd been crying, but that could have just been the rain. "You're getting soaked," I said, which was probably the dumbest thing I could have said. Obviously, he was soaked. He just looked at me for a second, like he was trying to figure out if I was actually real. Then his mouth twitched into something almost like a smile. "Yeah, I guess I am." I held the umbrella out farther so it covered both of us. "There's room for two under here." He didn't say anything, but he slid over on the bench. I sat down beside him, this strange boy with ocean eyes, and for a minute we just watched the rain hit the waves. "Bad day?" I finally asked. He made this sound not quite a laugh, not quite a sigh. You could say that. I should have felt awkward. I should have made some excuse and left. But instead, I just sat there with him, our shoulders almost touching, listening to the rain drum against my umbrella. "I'm Lila," I said after a while. "Lila Green. Nicholas," he said. Nicholas Hart. His voice was quiet, like he wasn't used to saying his own name. I noticed his clothes then, that expensive school. St. Augustus uniform. That's the fancy all-boys school across town, where the kids drive cars that cost more than most people's houses. We didn't say much after that. Just sat there watching the storm, two strangers sharing an umbrella. But it didn't feel strange. It felt important, somehow. When the rain finally started to let up, he stood. He was taller than I thought. Maybe 6 feet. "Thanks for the umbrella," he said, "and the company." I stood too, suddenly feeling awkward in the way you do when a moment is ending and you don't want it to. "Your eyes are beautiful," I blurted out, then immediately wanted to die right there on the spot. But instead of looking freaked out, he smiled. A real smile this time, one that reached those ocean blue eyes and made something flutter in my stomach. "See you around?" he asked. I nodded, even though I figured I probably wouldn't. Boys like him don't usually hang out with girls like me. But as I walked home, the rain turning to a soft mist around me, I couldn't stop thinking about him. Nicholas Hart, the boy in the rain. Why was he sitting there alone? Why did he look so sad? And why can't I stop replaying those few minutes over and over in my head? I don't know, but something tells me I haven't seen the last of Nicholas Hart. I guess that's why I'm writing a new diary, because today feels like the beginning of something. I just don't know what yet. Lila. Chapter 2. June was made of sunlight and secrets. June 12th. Dear Diary, he found me. I still can't believe it. I was at the library returning some books when someone tapped me on the shoulder. I turned around, and there he was, Nicholas Hart, looking completely different than he had a week ago. Dry, for one thing. His hair was this messy dark brown that curls slightly at the ends, and he was wearing a plain white t-shirt that somehow looked expensive. "Umbrella girl," he said, like we were old friends. I just stood there for a second, probably looking like a complete idiot. "How did you find me?" He shrugged, hands in his pockets. "Small town? Not that many places to be." That's not exactly true. Westview isn't tiny, but I didn't argue. I was too busy trying to remember if I'd brushed my hair that morning. "I'm going on an adventure today," he said. "Wanna come?" Just like that. No small talk, no "how have you been?" Just an invitation that felt more like a challenge. I should have said no. Mom would have wanted me to say no. But there was something about the way he asked, like he already knew I'd say yes. Like we were already friends in some alternate universe and were just catching up in this one. "What kind of adventure?" I asked. His smile was all mischief. The best kind, the unplanned kind. And that's how I ended up spending the whole day with a boy I barely knew. He took me to this abandoned wall behind the old cannery. It's covered in years of graffiti, and pulled 2 cans of spray paint from his backpack. "I'm not vandalizing anything," I told him immediately. He laughed. "It's not vandalism if no one cares about the wall. It's just, leaving a mark. Proof we were here. I watched him shake the can and start painting quick, confident strokes that somehow turned into a pair of wings spanning 6 feet of concrete. They were beautiful, all shades of blue and silver, catching light that wasn't even there. "Your turn," he said, holding out the other can. "I can't draw," I protested. "Good," he replied. "Drawing is about skill. This is about feeling." So I painted, badly, a mess of purple and gold that was supposed to be a sunset, but looked more like a bruise. But Nicholas nodded like I'd created a masterpiece. "Perfect," he said. And weirdly, diary, in that moment, it did feel perfect. After that, we went to this little cafe I've never even noticed before, tucked between 2 buildings downtown, the kind of place that doesn't have prices on the menu. He ordered for both of us these elaborate coffee drinks with cinnamon and honey, and something he called cardamom, which sounds made up but tasted amazing. "So," I said, trying to sound casual, "do you go to St. Augustus?" He nodded, stirring his coffee even though he hadn't put anything in it. "Senior next year. You?" "Junior at Westview High. Next year." He smiled. "A younger woman." I rolled my eyes, but I could feel my cheeks getting hot. "Do you do this a lot?" I asked. "Pick up random girls who offer you umbrellas?" Something flickered across his face, a shadow I couldn't name. "No," he said quietly. "This is new for me too." Before I could ask what he meant, he was already changing the subject, asking me about my favorite books, my dreams, what I thought happened to people after they died. Not normal get-to-know-you questions, but somehow I found myself answering anyway, telling him things I don't think I've ever said out loud before. We spent the whole day wandering the town. He took me to the old clock tower that's been abandoned for years. Apparently, the door lock is broken if you know how to jiggle it just right. We climbed all the way to the top and looked out over everything. I could see my house from there, looking so small and ordinary. "I have a list," he told me as we sat with our legs dangling over the edge, safely behind the railing. "Don't worry." "A list?" He pulled a folded piece of paper from his pocket, worn at the edges like he'd opened and closed it 100 times. "Things I want to do. Places I want to see. Before." "Before what?" I asked when he didn't finish. He shrugged, suddenly fascinated with a spot on his shoe. "Before summer ends, I guess?" I wanted to ask more, but something in his voice made me stop. Instead, I asked, "What's on the list?" He smiled again, all shadows gone. "Paint a wall? Check. Make a new friend? Check, check." When he walked me home as the sun was setting, we ran into Devon from my English class. Her eyes went huge when she saw who I was with, and she practically gave herself whiplash looking back at me as we passed. I'll definitely be getting texts later. At my porch, Nicholas stopped, hands back in his pockets like he didn't know what to do with them. "Thanks for coming on an adventure with me," he said. "Thanks for asking me," I replied, suddenly shy. He looked at me for a long moment, like he was memorizing my face. "Can I see you tomorrow?" My heart did this weird flippy thing. "Sure." "Good," he said, and then he was walking away, silhouetted against the pink-orange sky. I watched until he turned the corner, then came inside and collapsed on my bed. Mom called up that dinner was ready, but I'm not even hungry. I just keep replaying the day in my head. There's something strange about Nicholas Hart. Something different. He doesn't talk about normal stuff like other boys. He doesn't brag or try too hard or talk about parties or sports. He asks questions like he really wants to know the answers. He looks at everything, trees, buildings, people like he's seeing them for both the first and last time. And sometimes, when he thinks I'm not looking, there's this heaviness to him, like he's carrying something no one else can see. I should probably be careful. That's what Mom would say. That's what any reasonable person would say. But diary, I don't think I'm going to be careful at all. Lila, June 18th. Dear Diary, sorry I haven't written in almost a week. It's just, everything's happening so fast. Nicholas and I have spent every day together since the library. Every day. Mom's starting to ask questions. especially since he picks me up in his car, this vintage Jeep Wrangler that's somehow both beat up and perfect at the same time. Yesterday we went swimming at midnight. Midnight? He texted me at 11:30 p.m. asking if I was awake, and instead of being sensible and saying, yes, but I should be asleep, I found myself climbing out my window. Sorry, Mom. And meeting him at the end of our street. He drove us to that little secret beach past the lighthouse, the one where you have to hike down 1,000,000 steep steps to reach. The water was black, except for the silver path the moon made across it. I was nervous about sneaking out, about the dark water, about being alone with him. I don't have a swimsuit, I said when he started taking off his shoes. He just laughed. Neither do I. For one heart-stopping second, I thought he meant, but no. He just jumped in wearing his shorts and t-shirt. So I did the same, in my shorts and tank top. The water was so cold it stole my breath, but then it felt amazing, like being baptized in starlight. We swam out to where our feet couldn't touch anymore, floating on our backs side by side, looking up at the stars. Make a wish, he said. On what? On all of it, he answered, gesturing at the entire sky with one wet hand. The universe is always listening. So I closed my eyes and wished. I can't tell you what for, diary, or it won't come true. When I opened them, Nicholas was watching me with this expression I couldn't read. What? I asked. Nothing, he said. Just, some people go their whole lives without ever really looking up. Later, as we were drying off on the beach, he made a weird comment. We were talking about college, and I was saying how I wanted to study marine biology at Pacific Coast University because they have that amazing research center. You'll be amazing, he said. You notice things other people miss. What about you? I asked. Where are you applying? He got really quiet, then just shrugged. I'm not big on planning ahead. But you must have some idea, I pressed. With your grades, you could go anywhere. I'm assuming his grades are good. Everything about him seems perfect. Can we talk about something else? He asked, and his voice had this edge I'd never heard before. I dropped it, but it was strange. Who doesn't want to talk about their future at our age? It's like all anyone ever talks about. We've met up with his friends a few times. These boys from St. Augustus who are all ridiculously good-looking and polite in that way that makes you feel like they're laughing at a joke you don't get. They treat Nicholas like he's the center of everything, but there's something weird about how they act around him too, like they're all in on some secret. One of them, Elliot, pulled me aside when Nicholas went to get drinks. So you're the umbrella girl, he said, studying me with these intense green eyes. I guess. His smile was sad somehow. He talks about you all the time. He does? My heart did that flippy thing again. Elliot nodded. You're good for him. He seems lighter. Before I could ask what he meant, Nicholas was back, and Elliot was moving away, clapping him on the shoulder with what looked like too much feeling for just getting sodas. And then yesterday, something scared me. We were at the old drive-in theater that only shows movies on weekends. We snuck in just to sit in the empty lot and talk. He was in the middle of telling me about this book. He loves something about a pilot and a desert and a fox when he suddenly stopped talking. His face went pale, and his hand went to his chest, pressing hard against his sternum. Nicholas? I touched his arm. Are you okay? For a second, his eyes seemed unfocused, like he was somewhere else. Then he blinked, and he was back. Yeah, he said, dropping his hand. It's nothing, just heartburn or something. But it didn't seem like nothing. It seemed like something big and scary that passed over his face like a storm cloud. He changed the subject immediately, asking me if I believed in reincarnation. Of all things, and because I'm an idiot who gets distracted by his eyes and his questions, and the way he makes the world seem bigger somehow, I let him change the subject. When he dropped me off last night, he hugged me goodbye. It wasn't our first hug, but it was different somehow. Tighter, longer, like he was trying to memorize how it felt. What's going on with you? I finally asked when he pulled away. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Sometimes it feels like you're the only real thing in the world, Lila Green, he said, which wasn't an answer at all. And then, as he was walking back to his car, he turned around and said something that's been echoing in my head all night. Sometimes it feels like I'm saying goodbye even when I'm just saying goodnight. What does that mean? What isn't he telling me? I feel like I'm missing something important, something right in front of me. But every time I try to focus on it, he smiles, or asks me another impossible question, or takes me somewhere I've never been, and I forget to be worried. I should be more careful with my heart. I can feel it getting tangled up in whatever this is. But diary, I think it might already be too late. Lila, Chapter 3, July's Fireworks and Falling in Love. July 4th. Dear Diary, I think I'm in love with him. I know how that sounds. We've only known each other for a month. But time feels different with Nicholas. Like we're living in our own private calendar where days stretch into years and minutes contain eternities. Last night was the 4th of July. Nicholas picked me up at sunset, a picnic basket in the back of his Jeep, and that crooked smile that still makes my stomach flutter. He wouldn't tell me where we were going, just that it was next on the list, that mysterious list of his that he's always pulling out but never fully shows me. He drove us up to Hawkins Point, that cliff overlooking the entire bay where all the rich families have summer homes. I thought we'd have to sneak in, but Nicholas just waved at the security guard who nodded like they were old friends. My family has a place up here, he said casually when I asked, which was news to me. I knew St. Augusta's kids came from money, but vacation home with private beach money? That's another level. But the weird thing about Nicholas is that none of that stuff, the car, the clothes, the connections, seems important to him. It's like he carries these privileges so lightly they might float away if he stopped paying attention. He spread a blanket on a secluded part of the beach and unpacked the most ridiculous picnic I've ever seen. Strawberries, fancy cheese with names I couldn't pronounce, chocolate-covered everything, and sparkling cider in actual champagne glasses. Are we celebrating something? I asked. He looked out at the water, that faraway look crossing his face again. Life, he said simply. Then he smiled and added, and explosives in the sky. As we ate, he asked me to tell him my happiest memory. I told him about the summer when I was 10 and my dad was still alive, when we rented a cabin by the lake and spent every day swimming and every night looking at stars. How safe I felt sandwiched between my parents on the dock, our feet dangling in the cool water. That's the secret, Nicholas said, his voice soft, finding the moments where you're exactly where you're supposed to be with exactly who you're supposed to be with. And what's yours? I asked. Your happiest memory? He looked at me for a long moment, the dying sun turning his skin gold. I think I'm living it. My heart did that thing again, that flip tumble that feels like falling. The fireworks started just after dark, blooming over the bay in bursts of color so close it felt like we could touch them. We lay back on the blanket, shoulders touching, oohing and awing like little kids. During a big gold explosion that lit up everything, Nicholas turned his head toward mine. In the strange, flickering light, his eyes looked almost supernatural, too blue, too deep, too knowing. "Can I kiss you?" he whispered. The world narrowed to just his face, just his question hanging in the air between us. I nodded, not trusting my voice. And then his lips were on mine, soft and careful and tasting like chocolate and something else I couldn't name. The fireworks kept exploding overhead, but they had nothing on the ones going off inside my chest. It wasn't my first kiss, but it was the first one that mattered. When we pulled apart, his eyes stayed closed for a second too long, like he was memorizing the moment. When he opened them, there was something like wonder in his expression. "Lila Green," he said, my name sounding like a prayer in his mouth. Later, as the finale lit up the sky in a frenzy of color and sound, he wrapped his arm around me, pulling me against his chest. I could feel his heart beating, steady, then suddenly racing, then steady again. I wanted to ask if he was okay, but I was afraid to break the spell of the moment. On the drive home, we didn't talk much. There was a comfortable silence between us, his hand finding mine across the center console, our fingers intertwining like they'd always belonged together. He walked me to my door well past midnight. Mom was at her sister's for the weekend, thankfully. Before he left, he cupped my face in his hands and kissed me again. deeper this time. "I've never met someone like you before," he whispered against my lips. I wanted to say something profound in return, but all I could manage was, "Me neither." He smiled, resting his forehead against mine. If this summer was all I had left, I'd be okay with that. It wasn't until I was lying in bed, replaying those words, that I realized how strange they were. If the summer was all he had left, what did that mean? But then I remembered the way he looked at me in the fireworks glow, and the concern melted away. I'm probably overthinking things. He's just poetic like that, always saying things that sound like they're from some beautiful, sad movie. I drifted off to sleep with the taste of him still on my lips and his words echoing in my head. I think I'm living it. My happiest memory now, too. Lila. July 12th. Dear Diary, I met his mom today. I wasn't expecting to. Nicholas never talks about his family, but it just sort of happened. We were at the pier sharing this ridiculous ice cream sundae. His idea, obviously. The boy eats sugar like it's going out of style. When this elegant woman with silver-streaked dark hair approached our table, Nicholas's whole body tensed before he even looked up, like he sensed her presence. "Nicholas?" she said, her voice gentle but somehow formal. I thought that was you." He stood up immediately, manners kicking in. "Mom, hi." There was this awkward moment where it seemed like neither of them knew whether to hug, but then she leaned in and kissed his cheek. "This is Lila," he added, gesturing to me. "Lila. This is my mother, Eleanor Hart." I stood up too fast and nearly knocked over our sundae. "Smooth move, Lila." "It's nice to meet you, Mrs. Hart." She smiled, and I saw where Nicholas got those eyes. That exact same impossible blue. But hers had a sadness to them that made my chest ache. "Lila," she repeated, studying my face like she was trying to memorize it. "Nicholas has mentioned you." "He has?" I couldn't keep the surprise from my voice. Something passed between mother and son then, a look I couldn't interpret. Nicholas cleared his throat. "Just that we've been hanging out." Mrs. Hart's smile tightened slightly. "Yes. Well." She turned back to me. "It's lovely to finally put face to the name. Nicholas has been quite occupied this summer." Was that disapproval in her voice? I couldn't tell. "I should let you to enjoy your ice cream," she said after an awkward pause. She touched Nicholas's shoulder, her fingers lingering. "Don't forget your appointment tomorrow." "I won't," he said, his jaw tightening almost imperceptibly. "It was nice meeting you, Lila," she said, then walked away, her heels clicking against the wooden boardwalk. Nicholas sat back down, suddenly fascinated with his spoon. "Appointment?" I asked casually, trying not to sound nosy. "Dentist?" he said quickly. Too quickly. "Boring stuff." I nodded, even though I wasn't convinced. There was that feeling again, like I was missing something obvious. "Your mom seems nice," I offered. His smile didn't reach his eyes. "She is. She's just worried about me." He shook his head slightly. Senior year stress, college applications, that whole thing. But he never talks about college. Ever. Before I could press further, he was already changing the subject, suggesting we crash a wedding reception happening at the beachfront hotel. "It's on the list," he insisted. "We'll just blend in during the dancing part and steal a piece of cake." And because he looked at me with those eyes that make me forget everything else, I said yes. Because I always say yes to Nicholas Hart. The wedding crashing was actually amazing. We dressed up in clothes we bought at the thrift store. Nicholas insisted on a bow tie that made him look ridiculously handsome. Made up fake names. I was Cordelia, he was Sebastian, and for 2 hours we danced among strangers who were too happy and tipsy to notice we didn't belong. Nicholas charmed everyone, complimenting the bride, chatting with the groom's grandmother, even helping a little flower girl find her lost shoe. No one questioned our presence. It was like he had this gift for belonging anywhere, for making spaces change to include him. He told everyone I was his fiancé, pulling me close and kissing my temple with such convincing affection that I found myself blushing for real. When a slow song came on, he held me like I was made of something precious, his cheek against my hair, his hand warm on the small of my back. "This is how I want to remember you," he whispered, so quietly I almost didn't hear it over the music. "What do you mean?" I pulled back to look at his face, but he just smiled and spun me around, the moment broken. We did steal cake. It was chocolate with raspberry filling and absolutely worth the crime. We sat on the beach afterwards, still in our thrift store formal wear, sand getting everywhere, laughing about our narrow escape when the real best man almost caught us. It was perfect. He was perfect. But there was a moment, as we were walking back to his car, when Nicholas stopped suddenly, his hand going to his chest again. That same look of pain flashed across his face, and he took a few deep breaths like he couldn't get enough air. "Nicholas," I touched his arm, real fear blooming in my stomach. "I'm fine," he said after a moment, his voice strained. "Just heartburn again." "Maybe you should see a doctor," I suggested, trying to keep my tone light. He let out a laugh that sounded almost bitter. "Yeah, maybe." As we drove home, I noticed something fall out of his pocket when he reached for his phone. I picked it up, a hospital bracelet, the kind they give you when you're admitted. It was dated June 4th, the day before I met him, the rain day. I didn't say anything, just slipped it back where it fell when he wasn't looking. But my mind was racing. What isn't he telling me? Why would he hide being in the hospital? And what did his mother mean about an appointment? I don't want to push him. I don't want to ruin this perfect, magical thing between us by being paranoid or clingy. But something's not right, diary. I can feel it. Maybe I'm just scared because I've never felt this way about anyone before, and it's easier to look for problems than to admit how completely, stupidly in love I am. Because I am in love with him. With his smile and his questions and his list and the way he makes me feel like the most interesting person in the world. I just hope he feels the same way. Lila, July 25th. Dear Diary, it's been the strangest, most wonderful 2 weeks of my life. Nicholas and I have been inseparable. We've crossed so many things off his mysterious list that I've lost count. We went to a concert for a band neither of us had heard of and ended up dancing until our feet hurt. We slept under the stars in the back of his Jeep, counting satellites and telling secrets. We wrote messages in bottles and threw them into the ocean. His said, "Remember to live," which seemed both profound and vague in that Nicholas Hart way. And we've kissed, a lot. Each time feels both familiar and brand new, like discovering a favorite song for the first time. I introduced him to Mom last week. I was nervous. She's been asking questions about this boy you're spending all your time with. But she was surprisingly cool. Nicholas brought flowers and complimented her cooking and asked thoughtful questions about her job. Mom pulled me aside afterwards and whispered, "He looks at you like you're the answer to a question he's been asking his whole life." I melted, of course, because that's exactly how it feels when he looks at me. But there are still these moments when he gets quiet and distant, when his eyes cloud over and he seems 1,000 miles away. Moments when I catch him staring at me with this unbearable sadness that disappears so quickly I wonder if I imagined it. And sometimes he says things, cryptic, strange things, that make my skin prickle with unease. Last night, we were lying on the hood of his car, looking up at the stars when he asked, "Do you think people can sense when something big is about to change? Like animals before an earthquake?" "I don't know," I said. "Maybe. Why?" He was quiet for so long I thought he might not answer. Then, "I just wonder if our bodies know things before our minds do. If our cells can feel time running out before we can." "Time running out for what?" I asked, my heart suddenly beating too fast. But he just smiled and pointed at a shooting star I'd missed, and the moment slipped away like water through my fingers. I found another hospital bracelet in his glove compartment yesterday. This one more recent, July 19th. He'd told me he couldn't see me that day because he had family stuff. I put it back where I found it, this heavy feeling in my stomach. Whatever it is, Why won't he tell me? Doesn't he know he can trust me? Doesn't he know I'm falling so deeply in love with him that sometimes it scares me? Claire thinks I should just ask him directly. If he's hiding something major from you, you deserve to know, she says. And she's right. I know she's right. But I'm afraid. I'm afraid that whatever he's hiding might change everything, and I'm not ready for everything to change. Not when everything finally feels like it's exactly as it should be. For now, I'll just hold on to these perfect days, these perfect moments, and hope that whatever storm is coming passes us by. Lila. Chapter 4. Storm Warnings. August 2nd. Dear Diary. Something's wrong. Nicholas has been different these past few days. Quieter, more distant. He's canceled our plans twice this week with vague excuses about family obligations and stuff I need to take care of. When we are together, I catch him staring into space, his hand absently rubbing his chest in that way that always makes anxiety spike through me. Yesterday, I finally got up the courage to ask him directly if he was okay. We were at our spot on the cliff, watching the sunset. His profile was sharp against the orange sky, his jaw tense in a way I've been noticing more and more. "Hey," I said, nudging his shoulder. "Where are you right now? Because it's not here with me." He blinked like he was coming back from somewhere far away. "Sorry, just thinking." "About what?" "Life, death, the usual light topics." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. I took a deep breath. "Nicholas, is something wrong? Because it feels like you're pulling away, and I don't know why." He was quiet for so long I started to panic. Finally, he said, "Some things you can't fix, no matter how much you want to." "What does that mean?" My voice came out smaller than I intended. He turned to look at me then, really look at me, and there was something in his eyes that made my chest hurt. "It means I'm sorry for getting you involved in all this." "Involved in what?" I was getting frustrated now, tears pricking at the corners of my eyes. "Nicholas, please, just tell me what's going on. Are you breaking up with Mia? We've never actually defined what we are. Boyfriend, girlfriend feels too small for what's between us, but the thought of losing him made it hard to breathe." "No," he said quickly, taking my hand. "God, no. Lila, you're the best thing that's ever happened to me. Then why does it feel like you're saying goodbye?" His fingers tightened around mine. "I'm not. Not yet." "Not yet? What does that even mean?" Before I could ask, he pulled me against his chest, holding me so tightly it almost hurt. I could feel his heart beating, that strange rhythm I've noticed before, strong, then weak, like it couldn't quite find its pace. "I just need a little more time," he whispered into my hair. "Can you give me that? Just a little more time?" I nodded against his chest, even as tears slid down my cheeks and soaked into his t-shirt. We stayed like that until the stars came out, neither of us speaking. When he dropped me off at home, he kissed me with a kind of desperation that left me breathless and more confused than ever. Something is very wrong, and he won't tell me what it is. Lila, August 7th. Dear Diary, I haven't heard from Nicholas in 3 days. No calls, no texts, nothing. The last time I saw him was Monday. He showed up at my door unannounced, looking pale and tired, but smiling that smile that still makes my heart stop. "I want to show you something," he said. "It'll take all day. Are you free?" I should have been working on my summer reading, but of course I said yes. I always say yes to Nicholas Hart. He drove us 2 hours up the coast to this hidden lake I'd never heard of. We had to hike through the woods for almost an hour to reach it. I was sweating and complaining, but Nicholas seemed energized, pulling me along, promising it would be worth it. And it was. The lake was like something from a fairy tale, perfectly round, surrounded by pine trees, the water so clear you could see straight to the bottom. There wasn't another person in sight. "How did you find this place?" I asked as we stood on the shore, catching our breath. "My dad used to bring me here," he said quietly. It was the first time he'd mentioned his father. "Before he left." I waited, giving him space to say more if he wanted to. He walked out when I was 12, Nicholas continued, eyes on the water. Just gone one day. My mom got the house. I got postcards from places I'll never see. I'm sorry, I said, because what else could I say? He shrugged, but I could see the hurt beneath the casual gesture. It taught me something important, though. What's that? That leaving without saying goodbye is the cruelest thing you can do to someone who loves you. Something in his voice made me shiver despite the summer heat. We spent the day swimming and talking and lying in the sun. Nicholas seemed more present than he had in weeks, more like the boy I met at the beginning of summer. He asked me about my dreams again, about where I saw myself in 5 years, in 10. He listened with that intense focus that makes me feel like every word I say matters. When the sun started to set, turning the lake to liquid gold, he pulled me into the water one last time. We floated on our backs, hand in hand, staring up at the sky as it shifted from blue to pink to purple. I want you to remember this, he said softly, this exact moment, the way the water feels, the way the sky looks, the way your heart is beating. Why? I asked, turning my head to look at him. His profile was perfect against the darkening sky, his wet eyelashes spiky, water droplets catching the last light on his skin. Because perfect moments are rare, and this is one of them. As we were getting dressed to leave, he turned to me suddenly and said, "Lila, you know how I feel about you, right?" My heart stuttered. "I think so, but you could tell me anyway." He stepped closer, cupping my face in his hands. "You made this the best summer of my life. You gave me a reason to smile on the worst day. You showed me that even when everything feels impossible, there can still be this, us." It sounded beautiful, but also like a goodbye, and panic flared in my chest. "Nicholas..." He kissed me before I could finish. A kiss so tender and sad it brought tears to my eyes. On the drive home, he was quieter than usual, but he held my hand the entire way, his thumb tracing circles on my skin. When he dropped me off, he hugged me for a long time before kissing me one last time. "I'll call you tomorrow," he said. But he didn't, and he hasn't answered any of my texts or calls since. I went by his house yesterday. I've only been there once before, this massive place on the hill overlooking town, but no one answered the door. His Jeep wasn't in the driveway. Claire says I'm overreacting. "He's probably just busy with family stuff," she said. "Or maybe his phone broke." But it doesn't feel like that. It feels like something has ended, like some invisible countdown clock has finally reached 0. I'm scared, diary. I'm scared of what this silence means. "Where are you, Nicholas?" Lila, August 10th. Dear Diary. Still nothing from Nicholas. 5 days now. I've called, texted, emailed, even messaged him on Instagram, which he never checks. Nothing. Yesterday, I went back to his house. A different car was in the driveway this time, sleek and black, probably expensive. I rang the doorbell, my heart in my throat. A middle-aged man in a suit answered, looking at me with tired eyes. "Can I help you?" "I'm looking for Nicholas," I said, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. Nicholas Hart? Something shifted in the man's expression, a tightening around the eyes, a slight step back. "And you are?" "Lila Green. What were we? I didn't even know how to define it. I'm his friend. I haven't heard from him in almost a week, and I'm worried." The man glanced over his shoulder, then back at me. "The family isn't taking visitors right now," he said formally. "Please," I begged, tears starting to blur my vision. "I just need to know if he's okay." "I'm sorry," he said, already closing the door. "This isn't a good time." I stood there on the porch for what felt like hours, tears streaming down my face. Something was very wrong. I could feel it in my bones. On my way back down the long driveway, I noticed a group of boys standing near the gate, Nicholas's friends from St. Augustus. Elliot was among them, his face grim. "Elliot?" I called, hurrying toward them. "Have you seen Nicholas? Do you know what's going on?" The boys exchanged looks. One of them, tall with dark skin and sad eyes, put his hand on Elliot's shoulder, like he was steadying him. "Lila," Elliot said, and something in his voice made my blood run cold. "We can't. It's not our place to—" "Please," I whispered. "I just need to know he's okay." Another look passed between them. Elliot sighed, running a hand through his hair. "He's not okay, Lila. He's in the hospital." The world tilted sideways. "What? Why? What happened?" "It's not my place to tell you the details," Elliot said carefully, "but he's been sick for a while. Since before he met you." Sick? What did that mean? A cold? The flu? But I knew, even as I thought it, that it was something much worse. All those hospital bracelets, his mother's worried eyes, the way he clutched his chest when he thought I wasn't looking. "What hospital?" I demanded. "I need to see him." "County General," Elliot said. "But Lila, his mom isn't letting anyone in, not even us." I didn't care. I thanked them quickly and ran all the way to the bus stop, tears blurring my vision. At the hospital, the receptionist wouldn't tell me anything. "Are you family?" she asked. "No, but—" "I'm sorry, I can't give out patient information to non-family members." I spent hours in the waiting room, hoping for a glimpse of Mrs. Hart or one of his friends. Nothing. Finally, a nurse took pity on me. "Who are you looking for, honey?" she asked gently. "Nicholas Hart," I said, my voice cracking. "Please, I just need to know if he's okay." She frowned slightly, recognizing the name. "Are you family?" "No, I'm his—" I swallowed hard. "I'm his girlfriend." Something like sympathy crossed her face. "I'm not supposed to tell you anything," she said quietly, "but he's in the ICU. That's all I can say." ICU, intensive care unit, the place where people go when they're really, really sick. I collapsed into a chair, my legs suddenly unable to hold me up. What was happening? How could he be so sick without me knowing? Why didn't he tell me? I stayed until visiting hours ended, and a security guard kindly but firmly told me I had to leave. I walked home in a daze, my phone clutched in my hand, willing it to ring, willing Nicholas to call and tell me it was all a mistake. But he didn't. And now, I'm lying in my bed, staring at the ceiling, my eyes burning from crying. I keep going over every moment, every conversation, looking for clues I missed. All those strange comments, all those times he talked about time running out, all those moments he seemed sad for no reason. He was saying goodbye all along, wasn't he? In his own way. And I was too blind, too caught up in the magic of him to see it. Nicholas is sick, really sick, and I don't know if I'll ever see him again. How did everything go so wrong so fast? He left. I don't know why, and I don't know how to stop crying. Lila. Chapter 5. The Letter. August 15th. Dear Diary. I don't know how to write this. My hand keeps shaking and the tears keep blurring the ink, but I need to get this down, to make it real somehow, because right now none of it feels real. There was a knock on my door this morning. I was still in my pajamas, hair a mess, eyes swollen from another night of crying myself to sleep. Mom was at work, and I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, Mrs. Hart was standing there. Eleanor, Nicholas's mother. She looked different than the elegant woman I'd met at the pier, smaller somehow. Her face was pale, makeup-free, with dark circles under those blue eyes that looked so much like his. "Lila?" she said softly. "May I come in?" I nodded, unable to speak, my heart hammering so hard I thought I might be sick. I knew before she said anything. I knew from the hollow look in her eyes, from the way her hands trembled as she clutched her purse. We sat at the kitchen table, the morning sunlight streaming through the windows like nothing had changed, like the world wasn't ending right there in my mom's faded yellow kitchen. "Nicholas passed away 3 days ago," she said, her voice breaking on his name. "His heart, it failed. It was very quick. He didn't suffer." I felt the words hit me like physical blows. Passed away, heart failed, didn't suffer, each one a hammer against my chest. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "No," that can't be right. He was fine. He was just fine a week ago. Mrs. Hart reached across the table and took my hand. Her skin was cold. He wasn't fine, Lila. He hasn't been fine for months. And then she told me everything about the cancer, cardiac angiosarcoma, a rare and aggressive tumor in his heart, about the diagnosis on June 5th, the day I met him, about the doctors giving him 3 months, maybe 4 with aggressive treatment, about Nicholas refusing that treatment because it would have meant spending his final weeks in a hospital bed instead of living. He didn't want anyone to know, she said, tears sliding down her cheeks. Not his friends, not his teachers. He just wanted one last normal summer. She squeezed my hand. And then he met you. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The room was spinning around me. June 5th, the rain, the bench, his sad eyes. Your eyes are beautiful. That was the day he found out he was dying. That was the day he learned he had 3 months left. He talked about you all the time, Mrs. Hart continued, her voice soft. You gave him something I couldn't, a reason to smile, even after everything. You made his last summer beautiful. I bent forward, a sob tearing through me so violently it felt like I might break in half. Why didn't he tell me? I could have. I would have. That's exactly why, she said gently. He didn't want to be your sad story, Lila. He didn't want your pity. He wanted to be the boy you smiled at, laughed with. He wanted to be normal, just for a little while. She reached into her purse and pulled out a cream-colored envelope. My name was written on the front in Nicholas's slanted handwriting. He wrote this for you, she said, sliding it across the table. A few days before the end, he made me promise to give it to you. I stared at the envelope, afraid to touch it, afraid of what it might contain. Would you like to come to our house? Mrs. Hart asked. There are pictures, things of his you might want to see. I nodded numbly, clutching the letter to my chest. Their house was exactly as I'd imagined it would be. Large, elegant, full of expensive things that suddenly seemed so meaningless. The walls were covered with photos of Nicholas, as a toddler with chubby cheeks, as a little boy holding a soccer ball, as a teenager in his St. Augustus uniform. A whole life captured in frames. Mrs. Hart showed me to his room. I stood in the doorway, unable to make myself step inside at first. It was so perfectly him. Books everywhere, a star map on the ceiling, concert tickets pinned to a bulletin board, a guitar in the corner that I never knew he played. On his desk was a leather-bound notebook. Mrs. Hart picked it up, running her fingers over the cover. This is his bucket list, she said softly. The things he wanted to do before. She couldn't finish. She handed me the notebook, and I opened it with trembling hands. There it was, the mysterious list he was always consulting. Pages and pages of his handwriting, things crossed off one by one. Watch the sunrise from the highest point in town. Go skinny dipping. Learn to play Blackbird on guitar. Crash a wedding. Kiss someone under fireworks. Show someone your favorite secret place. And there, near the bottom, in different ink like it had been added later, make Lila Green smile every day of summer. That's when I broke completely, sinking to the floor of his room, clutching his notebook to my chest, sobs racking my body until I couldn't breathe. Mrs. Hart knelt beside me, her arms around me, both of us crying for the boy we'd lost. I stayed there for hours, going through his things, listening to Mrs. Hart's stories about him as a child. When I finally left, she hugged me tightly and whispered, "He loved you, Lila, more than he'd ever loved anyone. Remember that?" I walked home in a daze, the letter burning a hole in my pocket. I couldn't open it yet. Couldn't bear to hear his voice one last time. But tonight, sitting cross-legged on my bed, I finally found the courage. With shaking hands, I broke the seal and unfolded the pages inside. And Nicholas spoke to me one last time. "Lila, if you're reading this, then I've already gone. I'm sorry for that. I'm sorry for a lot of things, but mostly I'm sorry that I won't get to see you tomorrow, or the day after that, or on any of the thousands of days that are waiting for you.
I need to tell you the truth now. The whole truth. On June 5th, the day we met, I had just left the hospital. I had just been told that I had a tumor in my heart, cardiac angiosarcoma. and that even with aggressive treatment, I had maybe 3 months to live, maybe less. I walked out of that hospital, and it was raining, and I felt like I was drowning, not just in the rain, but in the knowledge that my time was suddenly so limited, that I would never get to do all the things I'd been saving for someday, that I would never fall in love, never get married, never have children, never grow old. I sat on that bench, thinking about everything I was going to miss, and I was so angry, Lila, so angry at the universe, at God, at my own stupid body for betraying me. And then you appeared, this girl with a bright yellow umbrella who looked at me and didn't see a tragedy. You didn't know you were talking to a dying boy. You just saw me, just Nicholas. And when you said, "Your eyes are beautiful," it was like someone had turned a light on inside of me. Because in that moment, I wasn't my diagnosis. I wasn't a collection of failing cells. I was just a boy being noticed by a pretty girl on a rainy day. I decided then that I wasn't going to spend my last days being pitied, being treated like I was already gone. I was going to live, really live, for whatever time I had left, make my own bucket list and check off as many things as I could. And then, the most amazing thing happened. You became part of that list. Not an item to check off, but the person I wanted to experience everything with. Your smile, your laugh, your questions about the world, they made me forget, for hours at a time, that I was running out of time. I know I should have told you. I know it was selfish to let you fall for me when I knew I'd have to leave. But can I confess something? I was afraid. Afraid that if you knew, you'd look at me differently, that you'd walk on eggshells around me, or worse, that you'd pull away to protect yourself, and I couldn't bear either of those things. I needed you to see me, Lila. Not the cancer, not the prognosis, just me. And you did. God, you did. You saw me more clearly than anyone ever has. I hope someday you can forgive me for not telling you the truth, for stealing this summer with you under false pretenses. But I need you to know that every moment with you was real. Every laugh, every touch, every kiss, those were the most honest parts of my life. You asked me once about my happiest memory. Do you remember? We were on the beach watching fireworks. I told you I was living it. That wasn't a line, Lila. That was the absolute truth. My happiest memories are all wrapped up in you, in your smile, in your voice, in the way you'd look at me like I was someone worth looking at. I don't know what happens after this. I don't know if there's a heaven or if I'll just become part of the universe again, stars and atoms and energy, but I like to think that somehow, somewhere I'll still exist. And that part of me will always be with you. So here's what I'm asking. Don't remember me in a hospital bed. Don't remember me as the boy who died too young. Remember me laughing with you on the beach. Remember me kissing you under the fireworks. Remember me teaching you to skip stones on the lake. Remember me living. And Lila, live for me too. Live wildly and fully and without fear. Go to all the places we talked about. Do all the things we dreamed of. Fall in love again someday, with someone who makes your heart race like I did. Have adventures. Make mistakes. Create a life so beautiful and so big that it has room for both your future and my memory. You gave my last days meaning, Lila Green. You made my ending feel like a beginning. I loved you, not past tense. Love doesn't end just because a heart stops beating. Always, Nicholas. Yes, check the inside pocket of my denim jacket. The one you always said made me look like a movie star. There's something there for you. A reminder that some infinities are bigger than others, and ours, though brief, was one of the biggest infinities of all.
I've read the letter a dozen times now, until the paper is damp with tears and the ink is starting to blur. Each time, I can hear his voice so clearly, it's like he's sitting right beside me. And each time, something inside me breaks a little more. He knew all along that our time was limited, that every moment we shared was stolen, borrowed against a debt that would eventually come due. All those strange comments make sense now. All those moments when he seemed to be memorizing my face. All those times he talked about making moments count. I wish I could be angry with him for not telling me. I wish I could feel betrayed or lied to, but all I feel is this overwhelming, crushing grief for all that might have been. for all the days we'll never have. Tomorrow, I'll go back to his house. I'll find that denim jacket. I'll say goodbye to the boy who made me feel more alive in 3 months than I had in 16 years. But tonight, I'm going to curl up with his letter and his memory, and I'm going to let myself break apart completely because I loved Nicholas Hart, and I never got to tell him. Lila. Chapter 6, The Day After Forever. August 22nd. Dear Diary, it's been a week since I found out. A week of moving through the world like a ghost, of crying until there are no tears left, of sleeping with Nicholas's letter under my pillow. The funeral was yesterday. I stood in the back of the church, watching all these people who knew different pieces of him. Classmates, teachers, distant relatives, listening to them talk about Nicholas Hart, the bright young scholar, or Nicholas Hart, the talented athlete. None of them knew my Nicholas, the boy who crashed weddings and watched sunrises and kissed me like time was running out. Because it was. I didn't speak. I couldn't. What could I possibly say that wouldn't feel hollow, inadequate? Mrs. Hart found me afterwards, as people were filing out. She hugged me for a long time without saying anything, and when she pulled away, there were tears in her eyes. He would have hated this, she whispered, gesturing to the somber gathering. All these long faces. He wanted to be celebrated, not mourned. And I knew she was right. Nicholas, with his bucket list and his spontaneous adventures, wouldn't want us sitting around crying. He'd want us to live, really live the way he tried to do in his final days. So today, I decided to do just that, to honor him the only way that feels right. I went to all our places, all the spots that made up the map of our summer together. First, the bench where we met. It was sunny today, not raining, but I brought my yellow umbrella anyway and set it down beside me. I sat there for a long time, remembering the way he looked up at me that first day, his eyes so sad and so blue. "Your eyes are beautiful," I whispered to the empty space beside me, and I could almost see him smile. Next, the beach where we watched fireworks. The sand was cooler now, summer starting to fade into fall. I found the exact spot where he kissed me for the first time and pressed my fingers to my lips, trying to remember the exact pressure of his mouth on mine. The boardwalk where we shared ice cream, the pier where we dangled our feet above the water and talked about dreams, the thrift store where we bought clothes for our wedding crashing adventure, the little cafe where he taught me how to play chess. I lost every time, and he would grin that crooked grin of his and say, "You're getting better, though." And finally, the hidden lake. It took me 3 wrong turns to find the trail, and I almost gave up twice, but something kept pushing me forward. His voice in my head maybe, saying, "It'll be worth it, promise." And it was. The lake was just as beautiful as I remembered, the water clear and still, reflecting the clouds overhead. I sat on the shore, hugging his denim jacket around me. I found it the day after I got his letter. Mrs. Hart let me into his room again, and there it was, hanging in his closet. The jacket that smelled like him, like mint and pine and something distinctly Nicholas. In the inside pocket, just like he said, was a small box. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a pendant, a tiny infinity symbol studded with what looked like pieces of blue glass. There was a note. "These are pieces of sea glass from the beach where we first kissed, a little piece of infinity for you to carry with you. Some infinities are bigger than others, but ours was enormous. Love, N." I haven't taken the necklace off since. Sitting by the lake, I finally did something I'd been avoiding. I opened his bucket list notebook again and read through the whole thing. Some items were crossed off, some weren't. Some had little notes beside them, memories, thoughts. And on the very last page, in handwriting that looked shakier than the rest, was a final entry. "Thank you, Lila Green, for making my last chapter the best one." I traced the words with my finger, feeling closer to him somehow, and for the first time since I found out, I smile. A real smile, not the hollow one I've been giving my mom and friends when they ask if I'm okay. Because in that moment, I can feel him with me. Not as a ghost or a memory, but as a presence, a warmth, a certainty that what we had was real. I open my own notebook, the one I'm writing in now, and begin a new entry, not just for my future self, but for Nicholas, wherever he is. I want to tell you that I'm angry. I want to tell you that I'll never forgive you for leaving me. I want to say that I'll be afraid to love again, that you've broken something in me that can never be fixed. But those would be lies, and we promise not to lie to each other. The truth is, loving you has been the greatest privilege of my life. Even knowing how it would end, even if I could go back to that rainy day and walk past that bench instead of stopping, I wouldn't change a thing. I'd choose you, and this pain over never having known you at all. You taught me how to live, Nicholas, how to see beauty in small moments, how to be brave in the face of uncertainty, how to love without reservation. These are gifts I'll carry forever. I don't know what happens now. I don't know how to live in a world that doesn't have you in it. I don't know if this ache in my chest will ever fully heal, but I do know this. I will live the way you wanted me to. Wildly, fully, without fear. I'll go to Paris and eat croissants for breakfast. I'll learn to play the guitar. I'll watch the sunrise from mountains you'll never climb. I'll fall in love again someday when my heart is ready. And in everything I do, in every place I go, I'll bring you with me. Because that's the thing about love like ours. It doesn't end. It changes shape, transforms, becomes something new, but it doesn't disappear. Like those pieces of sea glass around my neck, it endures. Time will smooth the jagged edges of this grief, but it will never wash away what we were to each other, what we still are. I met Nicholas Hart on a rainy day in June. I lost him on a quiet day in August. But somehow in those 3 months, he gave me forever. And I'll spend the rest of my life making that forever count. Always and infinitely, Lila. Such an emotional story. It makes you think about how we sometimes meet people when we need them most, and how that love can shape our lives even if it's brief. Have you ever experienced a love that made you see life differently? Tell me in the chat.
It started with rain and a look in your eyes. June winds were heavy, but you felt like light. A bench by the ocean, your silence said more than all the loud heartbeats I'd known before. You were here for a moment, but you stayed in my soul. With each sunrise we chased, you made broken feel whole. You said nothing of endings, just lived while you could. And I give it all back just to hold what we should. You danced with the waves, you burned like the sun. Each day was a whisper, a chance to outrun the truth you were hiding, the time ticking fast. I didn't need forever, just you and that past. You were here for a moment, but you stayed in my soul. With each sunrise we chased, you made broken feel whole. You said nothing of endings, just lived while you could. And I give it all back just to hold what we should. You danced with the waves, you burned like the sun. Each day was a whisper, a chance to outrun the truth you were hiding, good time ticking fast. But I didn't need forever, just you and that past. If love has a season, ours bloomed in the grave. A summer of you that still won't fade away.
Next, we have truths and trouble. Riley Green is trying to stay away from love after a painful betrayal, but her troublemaker neighbor, Tristan Holt, seems determined to keep her on her toes. This story is a mix of fun, flirtation, and tension. But at its core, it's about whether or not we can trust ourselves with someone who challenges everything we believe. Truths and trouble. Part 1. Trouble in the hallway. The knock came at 8:03 a.m. Sharp. 3 fast taps, a pause, then one slow, dramatic one, like he was announcing himself to a stage. Riley didn't even look through the peephole anymore. She just rolled her eyes, yanked open the door, and leaned against the frame with her arms crossed. Do you ever not start your day by being annoying? Tristan stood there, all messy hair and smug grin, holding a cup of coffee in one hand and spinning his apartment keys on the other. Shirtless, of course, like always. I consider it a public service, he said, stepping forward just enough to invade her space without technically crossing the threshold. Besides, you light up when you see me. Admit it. I light up because I'm imagining slamming this door in your face. Ouch. He held his chest, mock wounded. You wound me, Riley. I thought we were bonding. Bonding implies mutual enjoyment. You're just bored. He sipped his coffee, eyes never leaving hers. Maybe I just enjoy pestering the cute girl across the hall who never has a boyfriend over. Her cheeks heated, but her expression hardened too quickly. After her last relationship imploded, she'd promised herself a year without men, especially ones who looked like trouble in human form. That's none of your business. Everything on this floor is my business. He winked. Especially you, room 407. Riley exhaled sharply, half amused, half annoyed. Go put on a shirt, Tristan. Only if you say please. She slammed the door, but not before catching the sound of his chuckle echoing down the hallway. It was always like that, teasing, taunting, tiptoeing the line between flirtation and full-blown harassment. Though she had to admit sometimes she didn't hate it. Because for all his cocky comments and late-night parties, Tristan had helped her carry groceries more times than she could count. Fixed her leaky faucet, got her car jumped last winter when the battery died. He was maddening, but weirdly dependable, which made things confusing. That afternoon, they ended up in the elevator together again. Riley had earbuds in, pretending not to notice him. The book manuscript she needed to edit by Monday was proving to be a disaster, and her boss's passive-aggressive emails weren't helping. The last thing she needed was Tristan's nonsense today. Tristan leaned against the mirrored wall, watching her. You know, he started, I had a thought. Terrifying, she said, not looking at him. He grinned. Let's play a game. No. Come on, he coaxed. One truth, one dare. We take turns. You ask one question. I have to answer honestly. Then you give me a dare. I have to do it. And vice versa. I'm not playing your childish games. You're just scared you'll like it. She narrowed her eyes at him. And what exactly do I get out of this? My undivided attention, he said, stepping closer, voice low, which, according to most women, is priceless. The elevator dinged, her floor, their floor. She stepped out, but turned to look at him just before the door slid shut. Fine, she said, surprising them both. One truth, one dare. But if you make it weird, I walk. Tristan's smile was slow and dangerous. You're gonna regret that, sweetheart. And just like that, Trouble had a new game to play. And just like that, the game was set. Part 2, the first dare. Okay, Riley said the next morning. I'll go first. They were standing outside their apartment doors again, coffee in hand, leaning against the hallway walls like they didn't both have actual lives to get to. Tristan raised a brow. Already obsessed with the game? No, she said flatly. I just want to get it over with. He smirked. Hit me. Truth, she said, folding her arms. Have you ever actually liked someone, or is teasing girls just your version of cardio? He let out a low whistle, clearly not expecting that. Damn, we're not starting light, huh? You said truth, she reminded him, lifting her cup to her lips. Don't wimp out now. Tristan leaned his back against the wall, gaze drifting toward the ceiling like the answer was up there. Yeah, he said finally. Once. Riley blinked. only once? He nodded, lips pressed together. I was 19. She was something else. Smart, stubborn, gorgeous. What happened? I messed it up. His jaw tightened. Got bored or scared, or maybe I just didn't think I deserved her. Riley wasn't sure what to say. The honesty in his voice caught her off guard. Too real, too raw. It didn't fit the version of Tristan she knew, the cocky playboy who strutted down the hallway like he owned the building. But it did remind her of Marcus in a way, the way he'd looked at her when she found those texts and discovered she wasn't the only one in his world, the way he'd said she was too serious, too careful, as if loving with her whole heart was a flaw. The silence stretched just a little too long. Then, as if flipping a switch, Tristan straightened up and gave her that familiar grin. Anyway, my turn. Dare. She narrowed her eyes. Go easy. No promises. He stepped forward until there were only inches between them. I dare you to kiss me. Riley laughed, startled. What? A kiss. Just one. Nothing dramatic. He leaned in a little, voice dropping. Unless you want it to be. You're ridiculous, she muttered. And yet, he said, you haven't walked away. She should've. She really should've. But something in his eyes stopped her. Something cocky, sure, but layered under it. Something else. Something uncertain. Without another word, she stepped closer. Stood on her toes. And kissed him. It wasn't a joke. It wasn't quick or careless. It was soft, warm, and maddeningly slow. When she pulled back, Tristan was still. For the first time since she met him, he didn't have anything smart to say. He blinked. Well, damn. Riley's lips twitched into a smirk. Didn't think I'd do it, huh? Nope, he admitted, voice a little rougher than usual. But I'm really glad you did. She turned to unlock her door, the key slipping a little in her hand. Game's over, she said without looking back. You said one truth, one dare. She pushed the door open, stepped inside, but before she could shut it, he spoke. Riley. She hesitated. Tristan stood there, still not smiling the way he usually did. This one was smaller, real. Next round's mine, he said. And for once, she didn't hate the idea. Part 3. All his girls. Riley told herself the kiss didn't mean anything. It was just a dare, a stupid game, that's all. But ever since that morning, things felt different. Or maybe it was just her. Because now when Tristan knocked on her door, her heart did this annoying little flip. She hated it. Especially because Tristan was still the same, still cocky, still too charming for his own good, and still messing around like the hallway was his personal runway. As she sat at her desk trying to concentrate on her editing work, she couldn't help glancing at the framed photos she kept tucked half behind her laptop. Her and Marcus at Lake Tahoe both smiling. Before she found out he'd been juggling 3 relationships at once. Before she swore off men who couldn't commit. Before the walls went up. You busy? Tristan's voice interrupted her thoughts as he leaned against her doorframe like it was made for him. Yes. He didn't move. I need help choosing a tie. You own ties? I own one, but it needs a second opinion. She rolled her eyes but stepped aside. Fine, let's get this over with. His apartment was just as chaotic as she expected. Clothes draped over furniture, a game controller on the floor, and 2 half-eaten takeout boxes on the coffee table. You live like a teenage boy, she muttered. Thank you, he said with a wink. High praise. She crossed her arms as he held up 2 ties, one dark red, one navy. Where are you even going? She asked. Date, he said casually. Fancy place? Candlelight? Piano in the corner? Real serious stuff. Her stomach dropped. She didn't know why. Just pick one, he added. She pointed to the red one without speaking. He nodded, tossing the blue one aside. Thanks, Riles. I knew you were useful for something. She opened her mouth to fire back, but then she saw it. His phone lighting up on the counter. A message preview? Call me later. You still owe me that weekend. Bree? Riley stared. Then another notification popped up. Miss you already? Dinner soon? Kara. And a third one. Don't forget about our anniversary. Steph. Her chest tightened. You've got a lot of fans. Tristan followed her gaze, then cursed under his breath and flipped the phone over. It's not what it looks like. Really? She said, crossing her arms tighter. Because it looks exactly like what I thought. You're a walking red flag with a Wi-Fi plan? He sighed, running a hand down his face. Look, I didn't lie. I date. I just don't advertise the details. You have 5 girlfriends? 4, he corrected quickly. Okay, maybe 5, but that's not... You're unbelievable. She turned to leave, the memory of Marcus's excuses echoing in her mind. I don't need this again. Riley, wait. She stopped in the doorway, not facing him. I don't care what you do, Tristan. I really don't. Just don't drag me into your mess. He was quiet for a beat. Then softly, you kissed me. She turned around. It was a game. That's what you wanted, right? Just a stupid dare. His expression faltered. Didn't feel stupid. For a second, the air between them stilled, but Riley shook her head. Pick your truth carefully next time, Trouble, she said, and with that, she walked out, leaving him standing there, tie in hand, phone still buzzing. Part 4. The Elevator Incident. For 3 days, Riley avoided him. Not that she was counting. She left earlier than usual, came home later, and timed her grocery runs like she was dodging landmines. Tristan's texts went unread. His signature door knock, 2 quick taps, 1 soft, was ignored. On the 3rd night, she sat on her couch editing a particularly difficult manuscript when her sister called. How's the man boycott going? Emily asked, voice crackling over the speaker. Riley sighed, still intact. Almost a year now. Almost doesn't count when there's a hot neighbor involved. How do you know he's hot? You described his abs for 15 minutes on our last call. Riley groaned. He's trouble, Em. Just like Marcus was. Maybe worse. Emily's voice softened. Not every guy is going to lie to you for 3 years, Ree. You can't keep punishing yourself for someone else's mistake. Riley stared at the ceiling. It's not punishment. It's protection. Until the elevator got involved. The next morning, Riley stepped in just as the doors were closing, only to hear a familiar voice call, "Hold the door!" She hesitated for half a second. Then instinct kicked in and she hit the open button. He stepped inside, breathless, stupidly handsome in that just rolled out of bed but still hotter than sin way. Tristan? He didn't say anything at first, just stood beside her, hands in his pockets, staring at the floor numbers ticking up. The silence was thick. You're mad, he said finally. She didn't respond. You ignored my texts. Still nothing. You always this cold, or just the guys you kiss and then pretend it meant nothing? Riley turned, slow and sharp. You dare me, remember? He looked at her, eyes unreadable. Yeah, and I haven't stopped thinking about it since. That stopped her. Before she could form a reply, the elevator jolted. Hard, and came to a stop between floors. The lights flickered, then died. Oh, you've got to be kidding me, Riley muttered, hitting the emergency button. Tristan pulled out his phone. No signal. Classic horror movie setup. Don't start, she warned, backing into the corner. You're not claustrophobic, are you? No. I just don't want to be stuck here with you. Ouch. He put a hand to his chest. You wound me, Riles. Another beat of silence passed, then, let's play, he said. She blinked at him. What? 1 truth, 1 dare, right now. We're stuck in a metal box and you want to play a game? He shrugged. Might as well make it interesting. She narrowed her eyes. Fine, but if you dare me to kiss you again, I swear. Relax, it's not a kissing dare. Truth or dare? She asked. Truth, he said without hesitation. She folded her arms. Why do you even bother talking to me when you clearly have a whole harem of girls who are dying for your attention? He didn't flinch, because none of them make me feel the way you do. The air shifted. Riley's breath caught in her throat. She didn't want to believe him, but his voice was steady, his eyes serious. Before she could react, he smirked. Your turn. Truth or dare? She should have said truth, kept it safe. But something rebellious flickered inside her. Dare. He stepped closer. I dare you to admit you don't actually hate me. Riley stared up at him, heart racing. Marcus's face flashed in her mind, the way he'd looked when she confronted him, how easily the lies had come. But Tristan's eyes were different, clear, waiting. "I hate how much you get under my skin," she said finally. "But no, I don't hate you." The elevator lights flickered back on. The machine groaned, then resumed its climb. Neither of them spoke. But when the doors opened, they stepped out slowly, together, silently, side by side. Something had changed. And for once, Riley didn't want to change it back. Part 5. One more round. When the elevator finally jolted to a stop on their floor, neither of them moved right away. Tristan glanced at her as the door slid open. "Same time tomorrow?" Riley rolled her eyes but didn't say no. He walked beside her down the hall, that stupid, confident smirk on his face. She hated how much she noticed it now, how it actually looked good on him. She stopped in front of her door. That game was a one-time thing. Was it? He leaned against her doorframe like he lived there. "Sounds like you need a comeback. Best 2 out of 3, unless you're scared." "You literally dared me to admit I didn't hate you." "And you did," he said, proud, "which means I'm up by 1. Riley snorted. "Fine, one more round, but after this, the game is over." He held up his hand like he was swearing into court. Scout's honor. "Truth or dare?" she asked. Tristan rubbed his jaw, pretending to think. "Let's go with truth. I'm feeling generous." Riley crossed her arms, leaning against the door. "Have you ever told one of your girlfriends you loved them?" He blinked. The question clearly wasn't what he expected. "No," he said slowly. "Not once. Not even by accident. Not even then," he replied. "I don't say things I don't mean." Her chest tightened at that. Marcus had said, "I love you so easily," over breakfast, between episodes on Netflix, before hanging up the phone. Easy words that meant nothing in the end. She brushed it off. "Your turn." He didn't hesitate. "Dare." Riley froze. "Wait, I didn't say..." "You were gonna pick dare. I could see it all over your face." She rolled her eyes. "You're insufferable." "Flattering." "Now," he grinned. "I dare you to let me in." She blinked. "Into my apartment?" "Yep, right now. Nothing weird. I just want to see how someone like you lives. Someone like me." "You know," he said, following her as she opened the door, "someone who alphabetizes their spice rack and labels their fridge shelves." She turned to glare at him. "Don't touch anything." Tristan walked in slowly, like he was stepping into a different world. Her space was cozy, clean, warm. Definitely nothing like his chaotic bachelor pad. "Wow," he muttered. "I feel underdressed." "You're always underdressed." He chuckled, looking around. Then his eyes caught on the half-hidden photo frame on her desk. "Is that..." "My ex." She grabbed it and slid it into a drawer. "Not important." He nodded slowly, not pushing. "You got candles that match your throw pillows? Are you okay?" Riley tossed a pillow at him. He caught it one-handed, grinning. "You gonna offer your guest a drink or just throw things at him?" "Guest implies you were invited." She moved to the kitchen anyway, grabbing 2 glasses. Tristan flopped onto the couch, stretching out like he owned it. "You're weird," she said, handing him water. "And you keep letting me in." He took the glass, holding her gaze. She sat across from him, trying not to let that comment sink in too deep. "Maybe I like watching you struggle to fit into normal settings." "Oh, trust me," he said, grinning. "I'm just getting started." Part 6. Game Changer. Tristan didn't see Riley the next morning, or the afternoon, which was weird considering she usually opened her door at least once to yell at his music or return something he accidentally borrowed. He tried not to care. By early evening, his curiosity officially gave way to concern, or annoyance. He wasn't sure. He cracked his door open just enough to peek across the hall, still dark. Then her door opened. His heart kicked up for no good reason. Riley stepped out in a short black dress, hair curled, makeup soft but deliberate. And walking beside her, some guy, tall, button-down shirt, laughing at something she said. Tristan's stomach tightened. She didn't even glance his way. They walked down the hall, Riley holding her clutch, the guy holding the elevator. Tristan leaned against his doorframe, arms crossed, watching like it didn't bother him at all. But it did. He waited a few minutes, then grabbed his keys. He wasn't following her. He just needed air. In the lobby, he ran into Mrs. Kapoor from 201. "Your friend looked pretty tonight," she said with a knowing smile. "First date I've seen her go on since she moved in." Tristan's jaw clenched. "We're not friends." Mrs. Kapoor smiled like she knew better. "She doesn't date, you know, not since her last boyfriend. Some story about him juggling 3 women at once. Poor girl." Something cold settled in Tristan's chest. Bree, Kara, Steph. The texts on his phone. He didn't see Riley again until later that night. He was sitting on his couch, lights off, TV on low volume, a beer in hand he wasn't even drinking. Just waiting. And then, footsteps. He moved fast, cracked the door open just enough to see her walking up with date guy. Tristan's jaw clenched as they stopped at her door. The guy was smiling, saying something low. Riley laughed, actually laughed, and looked down shyly. Then he leaned in and kissed her. It wasn't long, just a soft, lingering goodnight. But it was enough. Tristan shut the door. Not loud, not dramatic, just shut it. Riley stood at her door for a second after the guy left, biting her lip like she was still deciding how she felt. Inside his apartment, Tristan stared at the blank TV screen. The silence felt heavy. He hated this game. Because maybe he wasn't the only one playing anymore. Part 7. A New Kind of Dare. Riley was brushing out her hair when the knock came. Soft, slow, and unmistakably him. She paused, eyes flicking to the clock. Almost midnight. Of course, Tristan had the timing of a villain in a movie, always showing up when she least expected, or maybe when she most expected. She opened the door just a crack. "What do you want?" Tristan leaned casually against her doorframe like he owned the place. Black hoodie, no shoes, sleepy eyes that were still sharp underneath. "You think I didn't see that little sidewalk soap opera earlier?" he asked, his voice calm but tight around the edges. Riley arched a brow. "Didn't know you were watching." "I always do," he muttered, then louder. "Anyway, truth or dare?" She blinked. "Seriously? Game's still on, remember?" he said. "We never said it had to be back to back." Riley considered slamming the door in his face, but her pulse was already speeding up. "Fine," she said, standing a little taller. "Truth." Tristan's lips curled, but there was something unreadable in his eyes now. Something sharp. "Did you kiss him tonight because you wanted to, or because you knew I'd be watching?" Riley's heart thudded. She hadn't expected that. "That's not a fair question. It's a truth," he said, his tone cool. "Fairness doesn't count." She looked away for a second, her throat tightening. "Both," she admitted quietly. "Maybe a little of both." He didn't speak, didn't flinch, just nodded once like he'd expected that. Then he turned slightly, stepping back. "Your turn." Riley stared at him. "Dare." Tristan glanced over his shoulder, a slow, dangerous smile spreading across his lips. "I dare you to go to bed tonight thinking about the kiss you gave me, not the one you got." Her breath caught. He started to walk away, but then stopped. "And I dare you to tell me tomorrow which one you liked more." The hallway fell silent as his door closed behind him. Riley stood there for a long second, hands still on the doorknob, lips slightly parted. She hated how her stomach flipped, hated the heat blooming across her chest, hated that he knew exactly where to hit. But worst of all, she knew exactly which kiss she'd be thinking about when her head hit the pillow. And it wasn't the one that said goodbye. Part 8. The one she picked. The next morning, Riley walked a little slower than usual. Coffee in hand, hoodie too big, hair in a messy bun, but her mind wasn't on her reflection or her half-done to-do list. It was on him. Specifically, that dare. She had barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, the memory of the elevator kiss came crashing back. The way Tristan looked at her after, like he wasn't expecting her to do it, but was glad she did. Like she'd thrown him off balance, even if just for a second. And now, he wanted an answer. She wasn't planning to give him one. Not until she walked out of her apartment and saw him leaning against her door, arms folded, still in sweatpants, smirking like he'd been waiting all morning. "Morning, Riley?" She rolled her eyes. "Do you sleep?" "Didn't need to," he said. "I had plenty to think about." She stepped around him, heading for the stairs. He followed, too close, way too casual. "You look tired," he teased. "Was it the sidewalk Romeo or someone else keeping you up?" She turned halfway on the stairs and gave him a pointed look. "You're obsessed." He grinned. "Nah, just competitive. So, ready to tell me which kiss you liked more?" She didn't answer. He kept walking beside her. Was it the polite little goodnight peck? The thanks for the salad and small talk kind of kiss? "Tristan." Or, he continued, voice dropping, "was it the one in the elevator? The one where you kissed me like you were mad at me and yourself at the same time?" She stopped on the landing. He stopped too. "Don't flatter yourself," she said, but her voice was weaker than she wanted it to be. He tilted his head. "It's not flattery if it's the truth." Riley exhaled slowly, shaking her head. "You really need to stop playing games." "Who said I'm playing?" He said. "You're the one who kissed me first, remember? Maybe I'm just catching up." For a second, neither of them said anything. Then she gave a tight smile. "Truth or dare?" His eyebrows lifted. "You picking?" "Yeah, it's my turn." He looked intrigued. "Truth?" Riley stepped closer, eyes locked with his. "Have you ever lied about how many girls you're seeing right now?" Tristan's smirk faltered. Just for a beat. Then it was back. "Truth?" he said, dragging a hand through his messy hair. "Yeah, I've lied." "To me?" He didn't blink. "Yeah." Riley nodded, stepping back. "Thought so." She turned to walk away, but his voice stopped her. "Riley, it's not what you think." She paused, not turning around. "I'm not seeing anyone? Not Bree, not Kara, not Steph." She turned slowly, skepticism written across her face. He sighed, shoving his hands in his pockets. "Bree is my cousin. She's getting married and I promised to help with the bachelor party. Kara is my agent. I write true crime pieces for magazines. And Steph?" He hesitated. "Steph is a therapy appointment. My therapist. It's been a year since I started going. My anniversary of trying to fix my shit." Riley stared, processing. "So why did you let me think?" "Because it was easier." He shrugged, suddenly looking smaller. "Girls think I'm a player, so that's what I give them. Low expectations, no disappointments. It's safer." "For who? You or them?" He looked away. "Both, maybe." She nodded slowly, then turned to leave. "Hey, Riley?" She paused, not turning around. "My turn next," he said. "You're not getting out of that dare." She didn't answer, but she was already smiling as she walked off. Trouble. He was the absolute worst kind of trouble. And God help her, she was starting to like it. Part 9, Sleepover Rules. Riley juggled 2 paper bags as she fumbled with her keys, muttering under her breath about the elevator being broken again. Her arms ached and she was just about to give up when she heard a familiar voice behind her. "Need a hand, Rumi?" She didn't even have to look. "Tristan, don't you have an empty harem to attend to?" He plucked one of the bags from her grip with a smug grin. "Only room for one in there these days. And she's playing hard to get." She rolled her eyes. "Lucky me." They walked the rest of the hall in silence, his arm brushing hers every now and then, definitely on purpose. As they reached her door, he leaned his back against the wall and smirked. "So, truth or dare?" She squinted at him. "Now, you're asking me while I'm holding groceries?" "Exactly. Adds pressure." He wiggled his eyebrows. "Pick." "Fine," she huffed. "Dare." He grinned. "Sleep over at my place tonight?" Riley blinked. "What?" "No funny business. Just a sleepover. Like middle school. Movies, snacks, terrible jokes." She scoffed. "Hard pass. Your place is a disaster." "Come on," he said, nudging her shoulder. "The rules, Riley. You picked dare." "I also value my sense of smell." He laughed. Okay, your place then. I'll bring the snacks. Same dare, different couch. She hesitated, then sighed. You're impossible. I'll take that as a yes. And somehow, it was. That night, her apartment was filled with the glow of movie credits and the sound of shared laughter. Tristan sprawled across the floor, tossing popcorn into the air and missing most of it. Riley sat cross-legged on the couch, hugging a pillow and shaking her head. You're really bad at this, she teased. Excuse you, I'm a professional popcorn athlete. They played video games next. He lost, of course, and insisted her controller was rigged. Then came funny childhood stories, a ridiculous round of Would You Rather, and finally, quiet. The kind that sneaks up on you when you don't want the night to end. She glanced over at him, noticing the way his eyes softened when he wasn't trying to win, flirt, or tease. The layers underneath the trouble. And for the first time, she understood why so many girls fell for him. Because under all the games, Tristan could actually be sweet. He turned to her. Truth or dare? Riley smirked. Didn't we finish this game? Humor me. She thought for a second, then shrugged. Truth. His eyes locked on hers. What would you do right now if I kissed you? Her breath caught. Heat climbed her cheeks before she could stop it. She looked away, then back at him. I'd kiss you back, she whispered. He didn't move right away, just studied her like she'd said something sacred. Then slowly, deliberately, he leaned in and kissed her. And this time, it wasn't a dare. Part 10. Final Truth. Sunlight filtered through the blinds as Riley blinked awake the next morning, momentarily disoriented by the weight of an arm draped across her waist. Tristan slept beside her on top of the covers, fully clothed. They'd fallen asleep watching movies. Nothing more. She studied his face, peaceful in sleep, no smirking, no games, just Tristan. She carefully extracted herself and padded to the kitchen to make coffee. As she waited for it to brew, she thought about how quickly things had changed. 6 months ago, she'd sworn off men entirely. Now here she was, with the most complicated one she'd ever met, sleeping on her couch. The sound of footsteps made her turn. Tristan leaned against the kitchen doorway, hair rumpled, eyes still heavy with sleep. Leaving without saying goodbye, he teased, but his voice was gentle. She held up a mug. Making coffee, not everything is dramatic. He accepted the cup with a nod, then took a careful sip. So, last night was nice, she finished for him. Yeah, he agreed. It was. They stood in comfortable silence, both pretending to be fascinated by their mugs. Truth or dare? She asked finally. His eyes met hers, surprised. You still want to play? Last round, she said. For real this time. He studied her face, then nodded slowly. Truth. Riley took a deep breath. Why me? All these months of knocking on my door, pushing the buttons, why bother with the girl who keeps shutting you down? Tristan set his mug down carefully, taking a step closer. Because you're the only one who sees through my bullshit, he said quietly. Everyone else just takes what I give them. The charm, the jokes, the surface stuff. But you, he shook his head, smiling slightly. You never let me get away with it. Riley's heart beat a little faster. So what? You like being called out? I like being seen, he corrected, moving even closer. And you see me? The real me, not just the trouble. She didn't back away when his fingers brushed hers. The real you is still pretty annoying, she murmured. Yeah, he agreed with a soft laugh, but you like it anyway. Their eyes locked for a long moment. Your turn, he said. Truth or dare? Riley hesitated, knowing this was the final round. The last play in a game that had somehow become much more than either of them expected. Truth, she said finally. Tristan's expression grew serious, all traces of his usual smirk gone. Are you still scared of this? Of us? She wanted to look away, but didn't. Yes, she admitted, terrified. He nodded slowly, his hand finding hers, fingers intertwining. Last question, he whispered. Are you willing to be scared with me? Riley felt something unlock in her chest, like a door she'd been keeping shut was finally being pushed open. That's technically another truth, she pointed out, smiling despite herself. Sue me? He said, stepping so close she could feel his breath on her skin. She reached up, her palm resting against his cheek. Yes, she whispered, I'm willing. His smile then was different, not cocky or teasing, but genuine, real. The smile of someone who had finally won something that actually mattered. Good, he said, pulling her close, because I'm done playing games. And as he kissed again, slowly, deeply, with none of the pretense or performance that had defined their early days, Riley realized that sometimes the most dangerous truth was the one you'd been hiding from yourself all along. That sometimes the right kind of trouble was exactly what you needed. Epilogue. 3 months later. Truth or dare? Tristan asked, head in Riley's lap as they lounged on her couch. Their couch now, technically, since he'd moved in last month. She smiled down at him, running her fingers through his hair. We don't play that anymore, remember? Humor me, he said, just like he always did. One more round, for old time's sake. She rolled her eyes affectionately. Fine. Truth. He sat up slowly, reaching into his pocket. Do you think we'd still be here if I hadn't knocked on your door that morning? Probably not, she admitted. Why? Instead of answering, he pulled out a small velvet box. Riley's breath caught. Truth or dare? He asked softly. She stared at him, heart racing. Dare. Tristan opened the box, revealing a simple, elegant ring that caught the light. His eyes never left hers. I dare you to say yes. Riley laughed through sudden tears, shaking her head at his ridiculous, perfect audacity. You're still the worst kind of trouble? She whispered. But when he slipped the ring onto her finger, they both knew it was exactly the answer he was looking for. Because sometimes the best truths didn't need to be spoken at all. The end. Wow, the chemistry between Riley and Tristan is undeniable, right? But that line between attraction and self-preservation can be hard to walk. Do you think it's possible to love someone who challenges you like that? Let me know in the comments. Our next story is Broken Boundaries. Layla thought she had escaped her chaotic past, but Cruz, her ex, keeps pushing back into her life. Her new relationship with Caden is everything she's wanted. Calm, steady, safe. But Cruz's return tests everything she's built, forcing Layla to choose between the past she can't forget and the future she's trying to create. Broken Boundaries, Episode 1. You just can't stay away. Knock, knock, knock. Layla flinched, coffee splashing over her fingers, burning. She set the mug down, eyes fixed on the door. "Expecting someone?" Caden asked from the couch, brows raised. She shook her head slowly. "No." The knock came again, harder, like a threat. Aiden was asleep in his room. She'd just gotten him down after an hour of tears. Heart pounding, she walked to the door and pulled it open. Cruz. Standing there in his black shirt, smelling like tequila and smoke and trouble she'd sworn off months ago. "What the hell are you doing here?" she whispered, blocking the doorway with her body. He grinned, the smile not reaching his eyes. "Nice to see you too, Layla. Just got off work, figured I'd swing by and grab my son." At 10:30 at night, her fingers tightened on the doorknob. He leaned against the doorframe like he owned it, like he'd never left. "You know how I work? Nights. Like every other night I've been coming here." Her jaw tightened. "You have not been coming here every night." "Well, I meant to." He brushed past her before she could stop him, his shoulder grazing hers. Electric. Familiar. "Thought maybe I was giving you two some space." Caden stood up, calm, steady, his entire posture a warning. Cruz saw him and smirked, eyes darkening. "Oh, look, it's Mr. Feelings." "Don't start," Layla said, shutting the door harder than necessary. "I ain't starting, just asking questions." Cruz tilted his head, eyes locked on Caden. "You been hanging around here long? Got your slippers under her bed yet?" Caden stepped forward, voice controlled but dangerous. "I'm not doing this with you, man." Cruz laughed, sharp, bitter. "Oh, you're doing something." She always had a thing for soft-spoken types. His eyes flicked to Layla. "Didn't last long, though." "That's enough," Layla snapped, pulse hammering in her ears. Cruz wasn't done. He turned to her, something raw and possessive in his eyes. "You seeing this guy, or was what we had just nothing?" "Don't do that," she hissed. "You're here to pick up Aiden, not dig through my love life." He grinned, teeth sharp. "Just trying to get a sense of the vibe, since I'm the one who helped make that kid sleeping back there." The air between them thinned to nothing. "You should leave," Caden said, voice cold. "He's sleeping. Come back when you're sober." Cruz turned, laughing. "Sober? This is me sober, sweetheart. You'd know if I wasn't." His eyes flashed. The storm before destruction. "I said that's enough," Layla barked. Cruz narrowed his eyes, looking between them. "So what? Y'all playing house now? You tucking my kid in while she watches like it's all cute and normal?" Caden stepped forward, shoulders squaring. "Watch your mouth." "Or what?" Cruz scoffed, inches from Caden's face. "You gonna therapize me to death?" Layla shoved between them, feeling heat radiating off both men. "Both of you stop. I swear to God." Cruz looked at her, something darker in his eyes, something that reminded her of nights she'd tried to forget. "You think I'm the problem? You think this guy's gonna stick around when shit gets real? I think you should pick up your son without turning my living room into a battlefield?" She snapped. He stared at her, too long, too intense, then looked past her to Aiden's door. For a second, something softer crossed his face. "Fine." He stepped back. "You win tonight. Let the little man sleep." He glanced at Caden, challenge written in every line of his body. "I'll be back tomorrow. Same time. Maybe earlier." Caden didn't move. "Next time you knock, try respect." Cruz grinned, eyes cold. "I'll try knocking less." The threat hung in the air as he left. Layla stood there shaking, caught between relief and a feeling she didn't want to name. Caden touched her arm. "You okay?" She didn't answer. Because no, she wasn't. And worse, some twisted part of her had missed this chaos. Missed him. Episode 2. Smoke in the Air. Layla slammed the door behind Cruz, her heart thudding like a war drum. She turned to Caden, still standing by the hallway, jaw tight, arms crossed, pacing slow and heated. "I'm sorry," she whispered, not sure who she was apologizing to. Caden didn't look at her. His eyes stayed glued to the door. "So that's him?" "That's Cruz." She nodded, throat dry. "The bartender?" "The father," she corrected, voice harder than intended. "And yes, that too." Caden scoffed, running a hand through his hair. "Guy's got some nerve. Shows up past 10 like he's still king of the castle." "He just got off work," she said, rubbing her temple. He always picks Aiden up after his shift. And he always stroll in like he's ready to throw hands. She didn't answer. The silence stretched between them, heavy with everything unsaid. Caden already knew. He shook his head. If Aiden wasn't asleep, I swear I would have... Don't, Layla snapped. Please, Caden, don't make this harder. I'm not, he said, voice too controlled. But I'm also not going to pretend this is normal. He came in looking for a fight. He likes to push buttons, she muttered, avoiding his eyes. It's what he does. You always let him? Caden asked, searching her face. Layla shot him a look. Don't start. He exhaled, walking toward her. I care about you, and Aiden. But if I'm gonna be in this, he gestured between them. I need to know what I'm up against. Layla looked away. Cruz doesn't play games. He is the game. Just then, her phone buzzed. Text from Cruz. Next time, tell your boy toy not to touch my son. I don't care if he's a therapist. He lays one finger on Aiden again and I'll break it. Caden saw her face change. What did he say? Layla locked the screen. Nothing. He's just being Cruz. But her hands were trembling. She turned and walked down the hall, slowly opening Aiden's door. Her baby was still asleep, soft breaths steady, untouched by the chaos. She lingered, watching his chest rise and fall, wishing she could keep him in this peace forever. Back in the living room, Caden waited, jaw flexing, fists curling and uncurling. Layla leaned on the doorframe, eyes on her son, but mind trapped in the storm. And somewhere beneath her anger, beneath her fear, was a flicker of something else, something that scared her more than Cruz's threats. The memory of what it felt like to burn. How long until Cruz crossed a line she couldn't walk back from? Or worse, how long until she stopped wanting him to? Her phone buzzed again. Another text from Cruz. You know he won't last. Guys like that never do. She turned off the screen, but the words had already burned into her mind. Because part of her, the part she'd been fighting, feared he might be right. You okay? Caden asked, voice gentle. Layla nodded, not trusting herself to speak. But she wasn't okay. She was caught between two fires, the inferno she knew could destroy her, and the steady flame she wasn't sure she could trust. And tonight, both felt dangerous. Episode 3, left at the door. A knock at the door, quick, sharp, familiar, like a ghost she couldn't exorcise. Layla glanced at the clock, 10:41 p.m. She opened the door to find Cruz standing there, holding a crumpled Spider-Man blanket in one hand and a smug grin on his face. Don't worry, he said, stepping in without an invite, brushing past her. I'm not here to cause trouble, just dropping this off. Aiden wouldn't sleep without it last time. Layla narrowed her eyes, crossing her arms over her chest. You could have texted. Where's the fun in that? Cruz tossed the blanket on the couch. Besides, I've been coming here every night anyway, haven't I? No, you haven't, she snapped, hating how her pulse jumped. He just smirked, seeing right through her. Feels like I have. What do you want, Cruz? He shrugged, but his eyes were anything but casual. Just being a good dad? She snorted. Is that what this is? Because showing up at night unannounced doesn't scream responsible. It screams you. Cruz took a step closer. Too close. The space between them crackled. You act like you don't miss it. Miss what? Her voice betrayed her. The chaos, the mess. His eyes dropped to her lips for just a second. Me. Her throat tightened. We didn't work, Cruz. Didn't mean we didn't fit, he said, voice lower now. We just couldn't handle the fire. It's not about fire, it's about Aiden now, and boundaries. He laughed under his breath. Funny how you care about boundaries when I'm the one outside them. Before she could answer, there was another knock. Cruz turned slowly toward the door, eyes glinting with anticipation. Let me guess. Don't, Layla warned, already moving. Too late. Cruz swung the door open. Caden stood on the other side, brows lifting, eyes narrowing the second they landed on Cruz. Oh, Caden said flatly. This again. Cruz crossed his arms, looking Caden up and down. You again. You just pop in every night like it's your damn apartment? I could say the same to you, Caden shot back. You done playing house yet? Layla stepped between them, arms out. Not tonight. I swear, not tonight. Cruz ignored her, eyes locked on Caden. I came to drop something off. Didn't realize I'd be interrupting therapy hour. Caden laughed without humor, the sound cold. You want a session, Cruz? I can diagnose you in 30 seconds. Oh, I already know what I am. Cruz leaned in, voice mocking. I'm the father. What are you, the temp? Layla shoved her hand against Cruz's chest. Get out. Now. Cruz's smirk didn't budge, but his eyes flickered to her hand on his chest, lingering. You gonna let your new man put hands on my kid again? 'Cause I got another blanket in the car. Maybe I'll bring it tomorrow. Caden clenched his jaw, stepping forward. Try it. Cruz held his gaze too long before backing toward the door. Sweet dreams, Doc. And just like that, he was gone. Layla slammed the door and sagged against it, heart racing, skin burning where she'd touched him. Caden didn't speak. He just stared at her, eyes searching, seeing too much. She didn't look up. She couldn't. Because this time, it felt like Cruz wasn't just trying to get under Caden's skin. He was digging into hers, too. And worse, part of her was letting him. When she finally met Caden's eyes, she saw a question there she wasn't ready to answer. He's just trying to get to you, she said, the lie tasting bitter. Caden's jaw tightened. Is he succeeding? The real question hung between them, unspoken but deafening. Is he getting to you too? Layla looked away, unable to give the answer they both knew was true. Episode 4, Playing with Fire. Layla couldn't sleep. 3 a.m. and she was still staring at the ceiling, replaying the night's confrontation on loop. Cruz's eyes, Caden's jaw, the electricity that had filled her apartment like smoke. Her phone buzzed on the nightstand. Cruz. You up? She should ignore it. She knew better. Layla. It's 3 a.m. Cruz. Didn't answer my question. She stared at the screen, thumbs hovering. Cruz. I can still read you, Lay. I know when you're running. Her throat tightened. Layla, stop. Cruz. From what? Telling the truth? Your therapist boy teaching you avoidance techniques now? Layla. He's not my therapist. Cruz. But he is your boy? She set the phone down, pressed her palms against her eyes. Counted to 10. When she looked again. Cruz. You didn't answer that either. Remember when you used to answer everything? When we used to talk until sunrise? Something twisted in her chest. Memory, regret, want. Layla. Go to sleep, Cruz. Cruz. Can't. Thinking about you. About us. Her heart skipped. She hated that it still could. Layla. There is no us. Cruz. Keep telling yourself that. Maybe one day you'll believe it. The phone rang. Cruz's name lit up the screen. She should let it ring. What do you want? She whispered, answering anyway. His voice was low, rough. 5 minutes. Outside. I need to see you. It's the middle of the night. When has that ever mattered to us? She closed her eyes. Cruz. 5 minutes, he said again. Or I start knocking. The line went dead. Layla slipped outside in sweats and a tank top, arms crossed against the chill. Cruz was leaning against his car, cigarette between his lips. The orange glow illuminated his face for a second before he flicked it away. Didn't think you'd come, he said. I didn't want you waking Aiden. Half truth, half lie. He nodded, eyes never leaving her face. Caden in there? She hesitated. No. Something shifted in his expression. Satisfaction, relief. Good. Why am I out here, Cruz? He pushed off the car, closing the distance between them. Close enough that she could smell him. Whiskey and smoke and memories she couldn't shake. I want my family back, he said simply. Layla stiffened. We're not a family. Bullshit, he growled. We made a kid. We made promises. Promises you broke, she shot back. His jaw tightened. I fucked up. I know that. No, she shook her head. Fucking up is forget to pick up milk. What you did? That was a choice? Before she could say more, headlights cut through the darkness. Caden's car pulled up. Cruz tensed beside her. You called him? What? No, Caden stepped out, his expression unreadable as he took in the scene. Layla in her nightclothes, Cruz standing too close. Everything okay? Caden asked, voice steady but eyes sharp. Layla nodded. Fine. Just, talking. Aiden called me, Caden said quietly. He woke up, couldn't find you, got scared and used your phone. Guilt flooded her. Oh God. He's fine. Your neighbor is sitting with him. Cruz's expression darkened. So my son woke up scared, and instead of calling his dad, he called you? Silence fell between them. Cruz, she started, but he was already backing away. Have a good night, both of you. Play your little family game. Don't do that, Layla pleaded. Do what? Say what we're all thinking. He laughed, bitter and sharp. He's got you fooled, this nice guy act. It won't last. He got in his car, engine roaring to life. Just before he pulled away, he looked at Layla one last time. And Lay, ask your boy how many other single moms he's helping these days. Might be interesting. Then he was gone, tires screeching against pavement. Layla stood frozen, his words ringing in her ears. Caden moved toward her. Don't listen to him. He's just trying to get in your head. But the seed was planted. And as she looked at Caden, steady, patient Caden, she realized she didn't know him. Not really, not the way she knew Cruz. We should get back to Aiden, she said, voice hollow. But as they walked back to her apartment, Cruz's words echoed. You've never wanted safe. Not really. The worst part? He might be right. Episode 5, Digging Deeper. Who's Rebecca? Layla's question hung in the air between them. 2 days since the parking lot showdown, and Cruz's words wouldn't leave her head. Caden looked up from his coffee, brows furrowed. What? Rebecca, Layla repeated, scrolling through his phone. The phone he'd left unlocked on her counter while he showered. The phone she'd never checked before today. She texts you a lot. Caden set his mug down slowly. You went through my phone? Answer the question. His jaw tightened. She's a client. Former client? A single mom? Something flickered across his face. Recognition. Layla. Is she? Her voice was steady, but her hands weren't. Yes, he admitted. But it's not what you think. Layla laughed, the sound sharp and humorless. What am I thinking, Caden? That Cruz was right? Cruz? Caden's eyes narrowed. This is about what he said? This is about you, she countered, tossing his phone across the table. And all these texts from a woman calling you her lifesaver. Who says she doesn't know what she'd do without you? Caden rubbed his forehead. I helped her son through a tough time. I helped her find resources. Like you helped me. It's different, he insisted. Is it? Layla crossed her arms. Or is this what you do? Swoop in, save the damaged single mom, be the hero her kid never had? Caden's eyes flashed. That's not fair. But it's true. She could feel her pulse in her throat. Tell me I'm wrong. He stood up, pacing. You're twisting this. Am I? Or are you just mad I caught you? There's nothing to catch. He snapped, voice rising. Then softer. Rebecca's son was in crisis. I helped, that's my job. And the late night texts, the heart emojis, that your place or mine message from last week? Is that your job too? Caden's face drained of color. Layla's stomach dropped. Oh my God. It's not what it looks like, he said quickly. It looks like you're sleeping with her. I'm not, he insisted. It was one time, before you and I... Before? Layla cut him off. So what? I'm just... Next in line? Your latest project? That's not... Get out. Caden stepped toward her. Layla, please, let me explain. There's nothing to explain, she said, her voice ice. You lied. By omission, but still a lie. I didn't want to hurt you, he said softly. Layla laughed again, bitterness rising like bile. Funny, that's exactly what Cruz used to say. The comparison visibly stung him. I'm nothing like him, Caden said, steel in his voice. No, she raised an eyebrow. You both made me feel special. You both had secrets. He flinched. The difference, she continued, is that Cruz never pretended to be perfect. The front door opened before Caden could respond. Cruz walked in, Aiden on his hip. The boy lit up when he saw Layla, squirming to get down. "Mama," he squealed, running to her. Layla scooped him up, breathing in his scent, sunshine and syrup. "Hey baby, did you have fun with Daddy?" Cruz's eyes darted between her and Caden, sensing the tension. "Everything okay here?" "Fine," Layla said, not looking at Caden. Caden was just leaving. Caden's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "We'll talk later." "I don't think so," she said quietly. Cruz didn't even try to hide his smirk as Caden grabbed his jacket and walked out. The door closed with a soft click. Cruz whistled low. "Trouble in paradise, Lay?" She shot him a warning look. "Don't." He held up his hands in surrender, but his eyes gleamed with satisfaction. Not saying a word. Layla carried Aiden to his room, kissing his head. "Go pick a book, baby. I'll be right there." When she returned to the living room, Cruz was leaning against the counter, arms crossed, waiting. "What did you know?" she asked. "About Caden. About Rebecca." Cruz shrugged. "Bar's a small world. People talk. And you didn't think to tell me? Would you have believed me?" His eyes held hers. "Or would you have thought I was just trying to sabotage your perfect little setup?" She had no answer for that. "Besides," he added, softer now, "I figured you'd see through him eventually. You're too smart not to—" The compliment warmed her, despite everything. He stepped closer. "You deserve better, Lay." "Better like what?" she challenged. "Better like you?" A slow smile spread across his face. "I never claimed to be better. Just real." And there it was, the pull she'd been fighting, the familiarity, the honesty in his chaos. "I should check on Aiden," she said, breaking the moment. Cruz nodded. "I'll let myself out." But at the door, he paused. "For what it's worth, I really have been trying. With Aiden. With everything." The sincerity in his voice made her chest ache. "I know," she whispered. After he left, she stood in the silence, caught between what she knew and what she wanted. Between the devil she knew and the angel who'd just fallen. Between safety and fire. And for the first time in months, she wasn't sure which way to run. Episode 6, Crossing Lines. "You can't keep avoiding my calls, Layla." Caden's voice echoed through her phone speaker, frustration bleeding through every word. 3 days since she'd kicked him out, 3 days of ignored texts and declined calls. "I'm not avoiding anything," she lied, balancing her phone between ear and shoulder while folding laundry. "I've been busy." "With Cruz?" The accusation hung in the air. "With my son," she corrected, voice sharp. "You remember him, right? The reason we met in the first place?" Caden sighed. "That's not fair. Neither was lying about Rebecca." "I didn't lie." "Omission is still lying, Caden." She slammed a drawer shut. "We spent 6 months together. 6 months of you talking about trust and honesty while you had this what? Fling? Pattern? Savior complex?" "It wasn't like that," he insisted. "Then what was it like?" Layla demanded. "Explain it to me." Silence stretched between them. "I can't do this over the phone," he finally said. "I'm coming over." "No, you're not." "Layla, Cruz is here," she cut him off, "with Aiden." Another pause, heavier this time. "So that's how it is." Caden's voice had cooled. "You're back with him already?" "We're co-parenting," she said, ignoring the twist in her gut. It wasn't entirely a lie. Cruz had been around more since their late-night encounter, showing up on time, staying for dinner, being the father she'd always hoped he could be. "Co-parenting," Caden repeated flatly. "Is that what you call it?" Layla's jaw tightened. "What I call it isn't your business anymore." She hung up before he could respond. The doorbell rang seconds later. Layla froze, heart hammering. Had Caden driven over? Was he that desperate? She pulled open the door. Cruz stood there, Aiden balanced on his hip, both of them soaking wet. "Sorry we're late," he said, raindrops clinging to his lashes. "Someone wanted to jump in every puddle between the car and here." Aiden giggled, confirming his guilt. Layla relaxed, smiling despite herself. "Get in here before you both catch pneumonia." Cruz set Aiden down and the boy raced to his room, leaving wet footprints across the floor. "Shoes!" Layla called after him, then turned back to Cruz. "How was the zoo?" "Wet," he laughed, running a hand through his damp hair. "But good. He loved the lions." She handed him a towel from the hall closet. "Thanks for taking him." "He's my kid," Cruz said simply. "It's not a favor." Their fingers brushed as he took the towel. Neither pulled away. "Was that Caden?" he asked, nodding toward her phone on the counter. "When I pulled up?" Layla hesitated, then nodded. "He's been calling." And nothing," she said, turning away. "It's over." Cruz caught her wrist gently. "Is it?" She looked back at him, pulse jumping beneath his touch. "Yes." He studied her face, searching for truth. "Because of Rebecca? Or because of me?" The question hung between them, heavy with possibility. "Does it matter?" she whispered. "Yeah," he said, voice low, "it matters." Before she could answer, Aiden came racing back, now in dry clothes. "Dad, Mom, look what I found." He held up a Spider-Man figure, beaming. The moment shattered. Cruz released her wrist, turning to their son with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "That's awesome, buddy." Layla backed away, needing distance from whatever had just nearly happened. "I'll start dinner," she said. Cruz nodded, following Aiden to the living room. As she chopped vegetables, her phone buzzed again. A text from Caden. "We need to talk. Tomorrow. Please." And beneath it, one from Rebecca. "Is Caden with you?" "He's not answering." Layla's hand froze mid-chop. From the living room came the sound of Cruz and Aiden laughing, deep and light, father and son, a sound she'd wanted for so long. She looked at her phone again, then at them. Safe harbor or stormy seas. The devil she knew, or the angel who'd fallen. Her fingers hovered over the screen. Whatever she chose next would change everything. Episode 7, Thin Ice. A message lit up on her phone. It was from Rebecca. "Have you heard from Caden? I've been calling and texting, no answer." Another text followed moments later. "Is he with you?" Layla stared at the screen for a beat, then deleted both messages without replying. Tonight, she just wanted to breathe. "Something burning?" Cruz appeared in the kitchen doorway, leaning against the frame. "Just my past," she muttered, turning back to the stove. Cruz chuckled. "Cryptic." "Rebecca texted," Layla said, keeping her voice neutral, "looking for Caden." She felt Cruz tense behind her. And nothing. I deleted it. She stirred the pasta more aggressively than necessary. "None of my business anymore." Cruz moved closer, his presence electric. "You sure about that?" Layla turned to face him. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you're still invested," he said, eyes searching hers. "Still caring what he does, who he's with." "I'm not. Aren't you?" He stepped closer. "Because the Layla I knew wouldn't walk away without answers." Somewhere in the living room, Aiden's cartoon played loudly, a buffer zone of innocence. "Maybe I'm not that Layla anymore," she said quietly. Cruz's eyes darkened. "Oh, you are. You're just hiding her." "From what?" "From yourself?" He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "From how much you miss the fire." She pulled back. "There's more to life than burning, Cruz." "Is there?" His voice was soft, dangerous. "You tell me you've moved on, but I see it in your eyes. The way you look at me, the way you pull away, like you're afraid if you get too close, you'll go up in flames again." Her heart raced treacherously. "You're delusional." "Am I?" He stepped closer, backing her against the counter. "Then tell me to leave. Tell me you feel nothing when I'm this close." The air between them crackled. "Dinner's ready," she said instead, slipping past him. "Aiden, come wash up." Cruz grabbed her wrist gently, stopping her. "You're running again." "I'm being a mother," she hissed. "Something you could learn from." Pain flashed across his face. Low blow lay. Guilt twisted her stomach. "I'm sorry, that was unfair. But honest," he said, releasing her. "I've been a shit father. I know that." The raw admission caught her off guard. "You're trying now," she offered. "That counts for something?" "Does it?" His eyes held hers, searching for forgiveness. "Because sometimes I think it's too late. that I've burned too many bridges. Before she could answer, Aiden barreled into the kitchen, all energy and innocence. I'm hungry, he announced, climbing onto his chair. Cruz ruffled his hair. Me too, buddy. Dinner passed in strange domesticity, Aiden chattering about lions and elephants, Cruz making him laugh with animal impressions, Layla watching them, something aching in her chest. This could have been us, she thought. This could have been our life. After Aiden was tucked in, Cruz lingered at the door. I should go, he said, but made no move to leave. Probably, she agreed. Neither moved. Unless, he started. Her phone rang, shattering the moment. Caden's name flashed on the screen. Cruz's expression hardened. Answer it. It's late, she said. Answer it, he repeated. If it's really over, prove it. Challenge sparked in his eyes. Layla held his gaze as she reached for the phone, hit decline, then turned it off completely. The silence that followed was deafening. Happy? She asked. Cruz's lips curved into a slow smile. Getting there. He stepped toward her. Layla's breath caught. The line between hate and want had never been thinner. Episode 8. Playing with fire. Cruz's palm found her cheek, thumb grazing her jawline. Tell me to stop. Layla stood frozen, heart hammering against her ribs, every nerve ending on fire. Tell me, he repeated, voice rough, and I'll walk away right now. She should say it. She should push him back. She should remember every reason they fell apart. Instead, she leaned into his touch. Cruz's eyes darkened. There she is. His lips crashed into hers. The kiss was everything she remembered. Hungry, desperate, like drowning and breathing at once. Her hands found his shirt, gripping, pulling him closer as years of want and anger and hurt melted between them. Cruz backed her against the wall, hands everywhere, relearning curves he'd never truly forgotten. I missed you, he breathed against her neck. Every goddamn day. Layla's mind raced, warning signals flashing behind her eyes. This was a mistake. This was backsliding. This was his teeth grazed her collarbone and thoughts scattered like ashes. Wait, she gasped, pushing at his chest. Cruz, wait! He pulled back immediately, eyes dark and wild. What's wrong? Aiden, she whispered, gesturing down the hall. He could wake up. Right. Cruz stepped back, running a hand through his hair. Shit, I'm sorry. Don't be, she said, surprising herself with the honesty in it. They stood there, breathing hard, the tension electric between them. I should go, Cruz said finally, though every line of his body said otherwise. Layla nodded, not trusting her voice. He moved toward the door, then paused, looking back at her. What happens now, Lay? I don't know, she admitted. He nodded slowly. Fair enough. Just as his hand touched the doorknob, Layla spoke. But I want to find out. Cruz turned back, hope and hesitation warring on his face. Yeah? Yeah, she nodded. But slow and careful, for Aiden's sake. For Aiden, he agreed. And then softer, and for us, the question hung between them, heavy with possibility. One day at a time, she offered. His smile was cautious but real. I can work with that. After he left, Layla sank onto the couch, touching her lips, still warm from his kiss. What the hell was she doing? Her phone buzzed from where she'd placed it on the coffee table. Caden, we need to talk. Please, Layla. There's more you don't know. She stared at the message, a knot forming in her stomach. More? What more could there possibly be? Her finger hovered over the reply button. Then another text came through. Rebecca, he's with me. Sorry to bother you. Something cold slid down Layla's spine. She typed quickly. What do you mean he's with you? Rebecca, we're talking. Sorting things out. Layla, sorting what out exactly? The reply came back instantly. Rebecca, oh, he didn't tell you about us? About the baby? The room seemed to tilt. Layla, what baby? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Rebecca, I think you should talk to Caden. Layla's hand shook as she dialed his number. He answered on the first ring. Layla, thank God. I've been trying to... Is Rebecca pregnant? She cut him off, voice deadly calm. Silence stretched between them. Caden? Yes, he finally said. But it's complicated. Layla laughed, the sound hollow. Complicated? You were sleeping with her while dating me, and now she's pregnant. Seems pretty straightforward. It happened before us, he insisted. You just said you slept with her once, and now she's pregnant? The timing doesn't add up, Caden. Another pause. Longer this time. It wasn't just once, he admitted. I lied. The betrayal hit her like a physical blow. How long? She demanded. Layla? How long? He exhaled. The whole time. The phone slipped from her fingers. Everything she thought she knew about him, about them, crumbled to dust. Caden's voice called from the phone on the floor, tiny and desperate. Layla, are you there? Let me explain. She picked up the phone with numb fingers. There's nothing to explain. Please. Goodbye, Caden. She hung up, heart thundering in her ears. Her phone immediately lit up again. Caden. Then again. Rebecca. Layla turned it off completely, hugging her knees to her chest. The taste of Cruz still lingered on her lips. From one fire to another. But which one would burn her worse? Episode 9. Truth and Consequences. Morning came too soon. Layla had barely slept. Her mind a hurricane of Cruz's touch, Caden's lies, and her own terrible judgment. Aiden bounded into her room at dawn, all smiles and energy. Mommy, is Daddy coming today? The innocent question twisted her heart. I don't know, baby. Maybe... As if summoned by his son's hope, her phone buzzed with a text from Cruz. Cruz, coffee? Just me and you. We should talk. Layla stared at the message. After everything with Caden, the last thing she needed was more complications. But Cruz was Aiden's father, and after last night... Layla. When? Cruz. 10? I can pick you up. She glanced at Aiden, already deep in his breakfast cereal. Layla. I'll need a sitter. Cruz. Already called my sister. She's on standby. Layla felt a reluctant smile form. Cruz planning ahead? That was new. Layla. Okay. 10. At exactly 10 o'clock, Cruz knocked on her door. Not early, not late. Another small miracle. Hey, he said when she opened it, looking strangely nervous. Ready? Aiden was already gone, whisked away by Cruz's sister Marisol with promises of ice cream and park adventures. Ready? Layla nodded, grabbing her purse. They walked silently to his car, sleek, black, too fast, just like him. About last night, Cruz started as they pulled away from the curb. We don't have to... Oh, we do? He cut her off gently, because I need you to know something. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. What is it? She asked, stomach nodding with dread. Cruz pulled into a small cafe parking lot, killing the engine. He turned to face her fully. I didn't come back just for Aiden, he said quietly. I came back for you, for us. Layla swallowed hard. Cruz, let me finish, he pleaded. I know I messed up. The drinking, the fighting, the other stuff. The other stuff. His diplomatic way of saying what they both knew. The women, the nights he disappeared, the lies. But seeing you with him, Cruz's jaw tightened. It woke me up, made me realize what I was throwing away. So this is all about competition? Layla asked, anger flaring. You couldn't stand seeing me with someone else? No, he shook his head firmly. It's about seeing you happy, and knowing I wanted to be the one making you smile like that. The sincerity in his voice caught her off guard. I'm in therapy, he added, the admission clearly costing him. Have been for 3 months. Layla blinked in surprise. You're what? Therapy, he repeated, a wry smile curving his lips. The real kind? Not whatever game your boy was playing. The mention of Caden hit a raw nerve. Don't, she whispered. Cruz's expression softened. What happened? Layla looked away, blinking back sudden tears. Rebecca's pregnant. Cruz was silent for a long moment. Then, that son of a bitch. He was with her the whole time, Layla continued, voice hollow. 6 months of lectures about honesty and trust. All while he was... She couldn't finish. Cruz's hand found hers, warm and steady. I'm sorry, Lay. The gentleness in his voice broke something in her. The worst part, she said, voice cracking, I feel like such an idiot. Again, first you, now him. Cruz flinched at the comparison, but didn't let go of her hand. I never pretended to be perfect, he said softly. That was his mistake. And yours? She challenged. Taking too long to fight for what matters? He answered without hesitation. For who matters? The words hung between them, honest and raw. Layla stared at their intertwined fingers. I don't know if I can do this again, Cruz. The roller coaster, the waiting for the other shoe to drop. I'm not asking for forever, he said. Not yet, just a chance to show you I've changed. People don't change, she whispered. No, he agreed, but they can grow. His thumb traced patterns on her wrist. Let me prove it, one day at a time, remember? There was a new steadiness to him, a grounding she hadn't felt before. Or maybe she was just desperate to believe. One day, she echoed, not a promise, but not a rejection either. Cruz nodded, understanding the fragility of the moment. That's all I'm asking for. He leaned forward slowly, giving her every chance to pull away. She didn't. His lips met hers, softer than last night, but no less electric. A new beginning, or the same old fire? Only time would tell. But for now, Layla let herself burn. Sometimes, love isn't just about the person you're with. It's about the baggage that comes with them. Do you think people can truly change, or is it easier to go back to what we know? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Finally, we have Say You Love Him. Tiffany is trapped between two men, Zane, her fiery, unpredictable boyfriend, and Lucas, the calm, stable guy who's always been there for her. But Zane's toxic love and Lucas's quiet support put Tiffany in the middle of a destructive emotional spiral. It's a story about love and abuse, and the damage caused when we let ourselves get tangled in toxic relationships. Say you love him. Chapter 1. A storm waiting to break. The door slammed shut behind her with a finality that made her flinch. Zane's apartment was suffocating. The air hung oppressive and poisonous, saturated with unspoken rage. He was already moving, stalking, his broad shoulders coiled like a predator's, fists clenched, white-knuckled at his sides. His eyes locked on hers, glacial and predatory. That instant she knew this wasn't going to end well. This was going to devour her. "Where the hell have you been?" His voice was a guttural snarl, leashed but barely. Tiffany's throat constricted. I was... Crash. A glass shattered against the wall, the sound so violent it lacerated the air. Shards of crystal exploded outward, cascading like serrated daggers, vicious edges gleaming in the dim light. Some pieces skittered across the hardwood floor, others embedding themselves into the rug with a sickening thud. Tiffany recoiled, the percussion still reverberating in her skull, her heart seizing in her chest. "I texted you. I called you." Zane's voice sliced through the tension, razor-sharp and savage. "And you goddamn ignored me." Her pulse thundered in her throat. "I wasn't ignoring you, I just what?" His hands raked through his hair, frenzied and convulsing. Sitting in your car, thinking about him, her stomach twisted into a knot of barbed wire. Lucas. The name impaled her chest. Zane's laugh was caustic, hollow. "Yeah, that's what I damn thought." Tiffany parted her lips, but the words evaporated on her tongue. What could she possibly say? "Say it." Zane's voice thickened with venom, advancing closer, devouring the space between them. "Goddamn, say it, Tiffany." Her windpipe constricted, each breath a battle. "I don't know what you want me to say." That was the wrong answer. Zane's fist detonated against the wall. A crater. A deep, goddamn crater. Tiffany's breath fractured, the room spinning violently for a heartbeat. Zane wrenched away, his ragged breathing slashing through the silence. His hands seized his hips, his head tilted back like he was desperately caging the hurricane raging inside him. Then he laughed, a splintered, corrosive laugh. It was the sound of someone unraveling at the seams. "You don't know what to say?" His voice plummeted, dangerously quiet. "You don't know?" Tiffany remained petrified in silence. Zane shook his head, his gaze feral. Without warning, he propelled a chair across the room. It crashed into the table, toppling a bottle of whiskey. The acrid stench of alcohol flooded the air, burning her nostrils. Tiffany's hands clenched into trembling fists. "Jesus, Zane!" "What?" His eyes blazed with infernal heat, his jaw clenched to breaking. "You don't like it when I lose my shit? Then don't screw with me, Tiffany, don't!" Tears scorched the back of her eyes, but she choked them down. "I'm not playing." Zane's jaw locked harder. "Yeah? Then what the hell are you doing?" She didn't have an answer, because deep down, she knew the truth. She was drowning. And Zane? He was dragging her under, his grip a vice around her throat. His voice dropped to a venomous whisper. "You know how I feel when you don't answer my calls? You know what it does to me?" Tiffany swallowed hard, the motion painful. She did know. The silence between them thickened to something suffocating. After a moment, Zane exhaled sharply, turned away, and dragged a hand over his face. For a moment, it seemed like the hurricane had passed. But then he turned back. His eyes locked onto hers, flaying her alive. "Tell me the truth, Tiffany. Where the hell were you?" Chapter 2. 3 hours earlier. Tiffany checked her watch for the 5th time in 10 minutes. She needed to leave. Now. "I should get going," she said, even as she made no move to stand. Lucas's eyes, warm, inviting, dangerous, met hers across the small cafe table. Already! His voice held no accusation, no demand, nothing like the razor-edge questions Zane would have hurled at her. Just gentle disappointment that somehow cut deeper than any of Zane's damn fury ever could. "Yeah." Tiffany wrapped her fingers around her nearly empty mug, seeking its lingering warmth. "Zane's expecting me." Lucas nodded, his expression carefully neutral. Too neutral. The mention of Zane's name had erected an invisible wall between them, as it always did. "How is he?" Lucas asked, the question loaded with unspoken history. Tiffany's chest tightened. "He's Zane?" Lucas understood what she wasn't saying. Of course he did. He'd been the one who'd picked up the pieces the last time Zane had shattered her. The time she'd sworn would be the last time. "You know you don't have to—" "Don't!" Tiffany cut him off, sharper than she intended. "Please, Lucas, not today." He held her gaze for a long moment, then relented with a slight nod. "Another time, then." Tiffany finally stood, gathering her purse. "I should really go. He's waiting." Lucas stood too, suddenly close. Too close. She could smell the faint citrus of his cologne, could see the flecks of gold in his hazel eyes. "Tiffany," he said, her name like a prayer on his lips. "Just be careful." Something twisted in her chest. This was why she'd called him today. Why she'd agreed to meet him even knowing what it might cost her when Zane found out. Lucas made her feel safe, valued, like she mattered beyond the storm of passion and pain that defined her relationship with Zane. Before she could stop herself, she reached for his hand, her fingers brushing against his knuckles, a touch that lasted only seconds but carried the weight of everything unsaid between them. "I will," she promised. As she turned to leave, her phone vibrated in her pocket. She knew without looking who it was. Zane had a sixth sense for moments like these, as if he could feel her slipping away even from across the city. Outside, she checked her phone. 5 missed calls, 3 texts. "Where are you?" "Answer your goddamn phone." "Are you with him?" Her stomach dropped. Somehow he knew. He always knew. In her car, she sat frozen, key in the ignition but engine silent. Her phone buzzed again, and again, and again. She should block his number, drive to her own apartment, end this damn cycle before it dragged her under completely. Instead, she turned the key, pulled out of the parking lot, and headed toward Zane's place. The entire drive, her phone continued its relentless assault. Each vibration sent a spike of adrenaline through her system until her hands trembled against the steering wheel and her breath came in sharp, shallow gasps. When she finally pulled into Zane's parking complex, she sat in her car for 20 minutes, watching the sun sink below the horizon, painting the sky in violent shades of red and orange. Like a warning, like a promise. Her phone lit up with a final text. "I know you're outside. Get in here, now." A chill swept through her. The building's security cameras. Of course, he'd been watching, waiting, his rage building with each passing minute. She took a deep breath, then another. This was her last chance to drive away, to choose differently, to choose herself. Instead, she got out of the car and walked toward his building, each step heavy with dread and something darker, something she wasn't ready to examine too closely. Desire, need, the terrible addiction of his chaos. At his door, she hesitated, raised her hand to knock, then lowered it. No, she still had a key. Using it was a statement, a surrender, an admission that despite everything, she still belonged here, still wanted to be here. The key slid into the lock, turned. The door opened. She stepped inside. The door slammed shut behind her. And Zane was there, waiting, his eyes cold and predatory, his rage a living thing between them. "Where the hell have you been?" Chapter 3, Undertow. The air between them crackled with a dangerous electricity. Zane's question hung in the silence, sharp and unavoidable. "Tell me the truth, Tiffany. Where the hell were you?" Tiffany's mouth went dry. The truth would detonate whatever fragile control she still maintained. The lie would only delay the inevitable. "I was with Lucas," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the pounding of her own heart. Zane went still, completely, unnaturally still. His face transformed into a mask of controlled fury, only the rapid pulse at his throat betraying the storm building beneath his skin. "Coffee?" she added quickly. "Just coffee." "Coffee." He spat the word like venom. "You expect me to believe that's all it was?" His shoulders coiled tight as he turned away, both hands gripping the edge of the kitchen counter. His knuckles blanched white against the dark marble, tendons straining beneath his skin. "Nothing happened," Tiffany said, her voice steadier than she felt. "We just talked." Zane's laugh was hollow, bitter. Talked. Right. He shoved away from the counter and stalked to the window, staring out at the city lights below. What about? How much better he is than me? How damn stable he is! Tiffany crossed her arms over her chest, a futile shield against what was coming. It wasn't like that? No. His voice dropped dangerously low. Then what was it like, Tiff? Enlighten me. When she didn't answer immediately, Zane's shoulders sagged. The anger seemed to leak out of him, replaced by something worse. Something raw and wounded. He turned to face her, and the vulnerability in his eyes made her chest ache. "I'm sorry," he said, his voice rough, unexpected. He ran a hand down his face and exhaled hard. "I shouldn't have yelled at you like that. I shouldn't have lost my crap." Tiffany swallowed hard. "Zane." "I mean it," he cut in, crossing the distance between them. His voice was calmer, but his eyes burned with desperate intensity. "You know how I get when I'm pissed, but it's not you. It's never you, Tiff." His fingers traced the side of her face, his touch feather-light, as though he feared she might shatter or flee. "You just drive me insane." Before she could respond, his lips claimed hers, not gentle but not brutal either. Hungry, seeking, desperate. A needy sound escaped her throat as his hands found her waist, drawing her against him. She melted into the heat of him, her arms instinctively circling his neck as his tongue slid between her lips, deepening the kiss. This was their pattern. This was how he always pulled her back from the edge when she drifted too far, with his hands, his mouth, the intoxicating promise of oblivion. And God help her, it worked every time. The sharp ringtone sliced through the moment. Zane barely pulled back, his breath hot against her lips, his eyes narrowing to dangerous slits. The tension that had momentarily dissolved resurged, crystallizing into something volatile. Before she could reach for her pocket, Zane's hand was there, extracting her phone with practiced ease. The second his eyes locked on the screen, his jaw clenched, his entire body went rigid. "Lucas." Tiffany's stomach plummeted. Zane's lips curved in a slow, lethal smile. "Oh, are you goddamn kidding me?" His voice was unnervingly calm. "Zane, give it back." "Give it back?" He tilted his head predatory. "While you answer your other man's calls? Yeah, not happening." Tiffany's pulse thundered against her. "Just let me." "You gonna answer him?" His grip tightened around the phone, knuckles whitening. "You gonna tell him you're at my place right now? That you just had my tongue down your throat?" "Zane, please." His expression twisted. "Please?" He shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping him. "That's all you ever damn do, isn't it? Beg me, but never choose me." Something fragile shattered in her chest. Then, with a sudden, violent movement, Zane hurled her phone across the room. It struck the wall with a sickening crack before clattering to the floor, its screen a spiderweb of fractures. Tiffany gasped, the sound catching painfully in her throat. The destruction hung between them, a physical manifestation of what they were doing to each other. "Zane, what the hell?" "Oh, now you're mad?" he snapped, eyes flashing. "You weren't mad when you had him calling you while you were kissing me." "It wasn't like that. You think I don't know what this is?" He dragged a hand down his face, his expression tormented. "You came here to get me to tell you what to do, didn't you? You want me to damn decide for you?" She inhaled sharply, the accusation landing like a blow. "That's not... You don't know what you want." He cut her off, his laugh jagged with pain. "And you expect me to be okay with that?" Tiffany blinked rapidly, her chest constricting as tears threatened. This was it. This was the moment. And she had no goddamn clue what to say. Because he was right. Chapter 4. Breaking Point. The sound of her phone shattering against the floor hung in the air between them. Tiffany stared at the broken device, her chest constricting as if Zane had struck her instead. The black screen stared back at her, a spiderweb of cracks spreading across its surface like the fractures in her relationship. Her fingernails bit into her palms. "What the hell, Zane?" He didn't answer, just stalked across the apartment like a predator denied its kill, shoulders rigid, breaths coming in harsh, uneven bursts. "Are you out of your goddamn mind?" she hissed, shoving past him to drop to her knees beside the ruined phone. Glass bit into her skin as she lifted it, turning it over in her trembling hands. The screen was obliterated, dark veins splintering across what had once been whole. Her stomach knotted. Lucas. She'd never know what he wanted to say, what he needed. Zane's jaw tightened as he watched her cradle the phone. "Jesus, look at you," he spat, mourning that piece of plastic like it's your damn lifeline to him. Tiffany's eyes flashed up to meet his. "That's not, isn't it?" His voice sliced through her protest. "You think I don't see it? The way you light up when his name appears? The way you hesitate before you answer, like you're deciding which version of yourself to be?" Her throat closed. "Stop it." "No." He advanced, each step deliberate. "You don't get to shut me out and then act like I'm the villain for calling you on your crap." She rose to her feet, clutching the broken phone against her chest like armor. "You had no right. I had every damn right." His voice erupted, filling the small apartment. "I'm the one who's here, Tiffany. I'm the one who's been here while you've been, what? Testing the waters? Seeing which one of us will break first?" Her breath caught. "That's not fair. What's not fair is you using us both like pawns in whatever screwed up game you're playing." He raked a hand through his hair, his eyes wild. "You keep saying you don't know what you want, but you do. You just don't want to admit it." "Zane, stop." "No." He stepped closer, his voice dropping dangerously low. "Say it. Say you love him." She squeezed her eyes shut, feeling the room spin around her. "Zane? Say it." The words exploded from him, primal and raw. Tiffany flinched, her entire body trembling. She opened her mouth, but the words dissolved on her tongue, leaving nothing but the taste of ash. And that was all the confirmation he needed. Zane's face contorted. With a savage curse, he seized a half-empty whiskey bottle from the counter and hurled it against the wall. The glass detonated on impact, amber liquid spraying across the white paint like blood. Tiffany recoiled, instinctively stepping back. Zane whirled on her, his eyes ablaze. "You think I don't know? You think I don't feel it every time I touch you? How you're somewhere else? How you're with him?" His voice was molten, scorching everything it touched. "Just admit it, Tiffany. You want both of us." Tears burned her eyes. "I don't." "You do," he cut her off savagely. "And I'm sick of pretending I'm okay with it. I'm not. I love you, Tiffany, but I'm not your goddamn backup plan." Her chest heaved with shallow breaths. The room felt too small, the air too thick. The walls seemed to close in, crushing her beneath the weight of a decision she wasn't ready to make. Because choosing meant losing, and losing meant breaking herself in ways she wasn't sure she could survive. So she did what she always did when the pressure became too much. She ran. Tiffany turned, clutching her broken phone as she bolted for the door. Her fingers had barely grazed the handle when a hand clamped around her wrist, halting her escape. Zane's voice dropped to a deadly whisper. "You leave now, don't come back." Tiffany's throat constricted. "Zane? I mean it." His grip tightened fractionally before releasing her. "I don't do second place. I don't do consolation prize. You walk out that door, we're done." The finality in his voice froze her blood. A part of her, a significant part, wanted to turn around, to press herself against him, to promise him everything he wanted to hear. But the words wouldn't come. So instead, she pulled the door open and stepped into the hallway, letting it close behind her with a soft, devastating click. Chapter 5. Crossroads. The hallway outside Zane's apartment stretched before Tiffany like a tunnel, narrowing with each step she took. Her heartbeat pounded in her ears, drowning out everything but the echo of his ultimatum. "You walk out that door, we're done." She made it to the elevator before her legs gave out. Leaning against the wall, she pressed the button and slid down until she was sitting on the cold tile floor, her broken phone clutched in her shaking hands. The damaged screen flickered weakly, a final gasp before going dark again, but not before she saw the notification. 3 missed calls from Lucas. Her chest constricted. She had just walked away from Zane. She had just abandoned the man who made her feel everything: ecstasy and agony, passion and fear, all wrapped in a destructive embrace she couldn't seem to escape. When the elevator arrived, Tiffany forced herself to stand, to move, to breathe. The descent to the lobby felt eternal, each floor taking her further from the safety of indecision and closer to the reality of what she'd done. In the dimly lit parking garage, the cold air sliced through her thin jacket, but the chill was nothing compared to the emptiness spreading through her chest, hollowing her out from the inside. As if sensing her vulnerability, her phone vibrated in her palm. The screen illuminated through its web of cracks, Lucas's name glowing like a beacon. Her finger hovered over the answer button, trembling with what might come next. Finally, she pressed it. Tiffany? Lucas's voice was careful, measured. He spoke like a man who had rehearsed this moment, who had prepared for whatever broken version of her might answer. "I'm sorry," she whispered, her voice splintering on the words. "Where are you?" The caution in his tone was undercut with something unfamiliar, a hardened edge she'd never heard from him before. I don't know," she confessed, the truth of it crushing her. "I don't know what to do, Lucas." "I know you don't," he replied, and beneath the gentleness she detected it, a thread of exhaustion, of resignation. "That's the problem, isn't it? Please, I just need you to... Just tell me what happened, Tiffany." His voice sharpened suddenly, the patience she'd come to rely on fracturing. "Why are you out there? Why aren't you with me?" Her chest tightened painfully. "Because..." She swallowed against the sob clawing up her throat. "Because I can't. I can't keep doing this." "Keep doing what?" "This endless circle, this purgatory I've trapped us all in." She drew a ragged breath. "I don't recognize myself anymore. I don't know who I am when I'm with you, or with him, or alone. I just..." She broke off, staring at the spider web of fractures across her screen, a perfect reflection of her fragmented heart. "You're not in purgatory, Tiffany." Lucas's voice turned cold, the warmth she'd always associated with him evaporating. "You're breaking my damn heart, and I don't know how much longer I can stand at the edges of your life, waiting for you to decide I'm worth choosing." Tiffany's breath caught painfully. No, Lucas, please." But it was too late. The line went dead. Her phone slipped from her numb fingers, clattering against the concrete. Tears scorched her eyes. In the span of 15 minutes, she'd destroyed everything. Her relationship with Zane, whatever future Lucas had been willing to offer her, and worst of all, the last scraps of herself she'd been desperately clinging to. She couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't move forward or go back. And then from behind her, footsteps echoed in the empty garage. Tiffany. Her blood crystallized in her veins. That voice, she knew it without turning. Zane. She kept her back to him, trying to steady herself with deep breaths that refused to fill her lungs. "Zane, please." But he was already there, his hand closing around her arm, spinning her to face him. His eyes were feral, burning with something beyond anger, a desperate, consuming need that both terrified and thrilled her. "You didn't answer," he growled, his face mere inches from hers. "I called after you left. You didn't answer. She tried to pull away, but his grip only tightened. "I can't. You think you can just walk away from me? After everything? After all the crap we've been through together?" His voice was raw, exposed nerve endings. "You think it's that easy?" His grip shifted, not painful but unyielding, holding her in place with the same desperation that had always defined them. And before she could respond, his mouth crashed down on hers, bruising and urgent. His hand slid into her hair, anchoring her against him as if she might dissolve if he let go. For one breathless moment, Tiffany surrendered. She kissed him back with equal ferocity, feeling the familiar heat consume her, burning away her doubts, her fears, her very identity. Until a phone rang. Not hers, his. The sound sliced through their moment like a blade. Zane tore his lips from hers, his breath ragged as he pulled his phone from his pocket. Tiffany didn't need to see the screen to know who was calling. She could read it in the thunderous darkening of his expression. Lucas. Zane's eyes snapped back to hers, blazing with renewed fury as realization dawned. "What the hell is this, Tiffany?" She stared at him, her lips still burning from his kiss, her mind spinning with impossible questions. How did Lucas have Zane's number? Why was he calling now? What storm was about to break over all their heads? The garage lights flickered overhead, casting harsh shadows across Zane's face as he waited for an answer she didn't have. The storm had returned, and this time there would be no outrunning it. Chapter 6. Aftermath. The silence between them wasn't just heavy, it was a physical presence, crushing the air from Tiffany's lungs with each passing second. Her heartbeat hammered against her ribs like a prisoner desperate for escape as she watched Zane, his jaw clenched with such force she could almost hear the grinding of his teeth. His phone illuminated the darkness between them, Lucas's name blazing across the screen. Not just an interruption, but a detonator, threatening to obliterate whatever fragile connection they'd managed to salvage. Zane released a breath like a wounded animal, his knuckles bleaching white around the phone before he viciously silenced it and buried it in his pocket. When his eyes found hers, they were obsidian pools, fathomless, unreadable, terrifying. "What the hell, Tiffany?" The dangerous quiet in his voice made her shiver more than if he'd shouted. It was the calm of a tornado's eye, promising devastation. "Why is Lucas calling me?" Her lips parted but produced nothing. The truth, that she had no answer, no explanation, felt like ashes on her tongue. I don't know," she finally managed, the words so fragile they nearly shattered upon delivery. A sound escaped him, half scoff, half wounded growl, as he raked fingers through his hair with such violence she feared he might tear it out. "You don't know." He retreated a step, and the sudden vacuum of his absence left her skin screaming for his warmth. "You walk out on me, leave me standing here gutted and raw, and now Lucas, of all the goddamn people, is lighting up my phone?" Something flashed in his eyes that transcended anger, something that looked devastatingly like heartbreak. "What the hell did you tell him about us?" Tiffany swallowed against the desert in her throat, the lump that threatened to choke her. "Nothing. I told him nothing, Zane. I swear to God." His laugh was a rusty blade, carving into her without mercy. "Right. So what? He miraculously acquired my number and decided that tonight, this night, was the perfect damn moment to reach out. I don't know how he got it," she pleaded, desperation and terror colliding in her chest like warring storms. "But I never—" Her sentence died stillborn as his phone vibrated again. Lucas. Again. Again. Zane didn't even glance down. Something in his expression calcified as he moved past her, his body a collection of razor edges and barely contained fury. Tiffany pivoted, watching helplessly as he marched toward his car, each footfall an accusation. "Zane, please, wait!" He wrenched the driver's door open with such force it groaned in protest. When he looked at her across the car's roof, his face was a battlefield of emotions. "For what?" The word cracked like lightning, charged with raw electric pain. "So you can feed me more lies? So I can stand here like a damn masochist while you tear off another piece of me? While you keep me dangling like some backup option you're not even sure you want?" His words weren't just cutting, they were surgical, slicing through her defenses with precision that targeted her deepest fears and insecurities. "That's not fair," she whispered, arms wrapping around herself in a futile shield. "Isn't it?" The laugh that escaped him was hollow, haunted. "You don't even know what you want, Tiffany. You never have." Something in his face softened for a heartbeat, just enough to let her glimpse the raw wound beneath his armor. "And I can't keep bleeding out while you figure it out." Her breath snagged in her throat, heart splintering into jagged fragments. "I do know what I want." She reached toward him, desperation bleeding into her voice, but even she couldn't ignore the tremulous uncertainty that threaded through her words, betraying her. Zane's eyes met hers one final time, and in them she saw not anger but something worse. Resignation. "No, Tiffany, you don't." He dropped into the driver's seat and slammed the door with such finality it echoed like a death knell. The engine roared to life, shattering the night's stillness. For one suspended, crystalline moment, Tiffany believed, prayed, he would stay. That this wouldn't be their ending, that they'd tear each other apart with words only to stitch each other back together with hands and hearts, that they'd salvage the precious, delicate thing that had been blossoming between them. But then tires screamed against pavement, and he vanished into the night. She remained frozen, arms clutched around her middle as if physically holding herself together, staring into the emptiness where his taillights had disappeared long after even their memory had faded. Lucas's accusations still ricocheted through her skull. Zane's parting words still scorched her soul. And suddenly, the full catastrophic weight of every selfish choice, every misguided decision, Every moment of indecision crashed down upon her with merciless force, leaving her gasping beneath the revelation. She had lost them both. And the most devastating truth, she wasn't certain she deserved either one. Chapter 7. Collision Course. Zane's fingers drummed a violent cadence against the steering wheel, his grip so fierce the leather protested beneath his hands. His jaw pulsed with tension, muscles spasming as he carved through midnight streets like a blade through flesh. Every red light was an intentional insult, every passing second feeding the primal inferno blazing through his veins. Lucas wanted to talk? Perfect. He'd get more than just a phone call. The tires shrieked as he wrenched into the parking lot of Lucas's apartment complex, the journey there a blur of speed and fury. His car growled as he slammed it into park, the sound mirroring the feral rumble in his chest. For a suspended moment, he remained motionless, lungs heaving, wrestling the molten rage threatening to consume him. Storming in with fists swinging would solve nothing, though God knew how damn tempting that option was. He launched himself from the car, door crashing shut behind him. The elevator's confines suffocated him with quiet, though his mind roared like a hurricane. By the time the doors parted at Lucas's floor, his blood wasn't just boiling, it was nuclear. He stalked down the hallway and hammered against the door, each impact a thunderous declaration of war. The door swung inward to reveal Lucas in rumpled loungewear, his expression morphing from surprise to something calculated and unreadable. Zane shouldered past him, invading his space with deliberate hostility. "You've got exactly 2 seconds to explain why the hell you called me." Lucas closed the door with deceptive calm, exhaling heavily. "Because Tiffany wasn't answering, and I needed to reach her." Zane wheeled on him, eyes burning with contempt. "So your solution is to call me? How did you even get my number?" Lucas crossed his arms, jaw hardening to match Zane's intensity. "Found it in her notebook. Didn't think it would trigger this level of meltdown." A sound erupted from Zane's throat, savage, bitter laughter that held no trace of humor. "Not a big deal. You didn't think I'd take issue with you? Of all the goddamn people on this planet, suddenly appearing on my caller ID?" Lucas's gaze narrowed dangerously. "What exactly is your problem here?" "My problem?" Zane advanced, eliminating the safety of distance between them. "My problem is you inserting yourself where you have no right to be. Whatever exists between Tiffany and me, that's sacred ground you don't get to trample through." Lucas's laugh was razor-sharp, dismissive. "That's incredibly rich, coming from someone acting like she's property to be claimed." Something dangerous flickered in Zane's face. "That's not what this is about." "Then illuminate me," Lucas challenged, voice edged with contempt. "Because from where I'm standing, you're just as lost in this mess as she is." Zane's fists clenched at his sides, knuckles whitening with restraint. "You know absolutely nothing about what exists between Tiffany and me." Lucas unleashed a harsh, humorless laugh, advancing to meet Zane's intimidation with equal force. "I know enough. I know she's terrified. I know she's choosing neither of us right now." His voice dropped to something lethal, controlled but seething with emotion. "And I know that your alpha male theatrics in my living room won't change a single goddamn thing about that reality." Zane's pulse thundered in his skull like war drums. The impulse to either demolish something or flee before this confrontation unraveled, him completely warred within his chest. Lucas dragged a hand down his face, exhaling his frustration through flared nostrils. "Do you love her?" Zane went rigid, muscles locking. The answer clawed at his throat like a caged beast, but he'd sooner swallow glass than hand Lucas that vulnerability as a weapon. Something in Zane's expression must have betrayed him, because Lucas's features crystallized with realization. That's the fundamental problem. You believe love alone is enough. Zane surged forward, voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "And you believe you know what she needs better than she does?" Lucas met his intensity without flinching, like two predators circling the same prey. "No, but I recognize she's the only one with the right to figure that out. Not you. Not me." The words struck with precision, finding vulnerable flesh beneath Zane's armor. For an eternity compressed into seconds, silence reigned between them. The tension wasn't just palpable, it was alive, crackling like electricity where neither man would concede ground. Finally, Zane retreated a step, releasing a breath that carried the weight of resignation. "Do us both a favor, Lucas. Don't ever call me again." Lucas offered nothing but a curt nod of acknowledgement. Zane turned and stalked toward the exit without a backward glance. Perhaps Lucas had stumbled onto one truth. Maybe Tiffany was running from them both. But this time, Zane wouldn't be the fool left behind in pursuit. Chapter 8: Uninvited Guests. Tiffany curled into herself on the couch, staring at her new phone with a hollowness that gnawed at her insides. 3 days. 3 agonizing days since words had detonated between them. 3 days since the careful facade of normalcy had splintered. She hadn't deliberately ignored Lucas, but between the hassle of replacing her shattered phone and the dread of confrontation settling heavy in her stomach, she'd let silence stretch between them like a tightrope. When the knock echoed through her apartment that night, something in her chest clenched. She already knew. With a breath that didn't quite fill her lungs, she pulled the door open. There stood Lucas, jeans and hoodie, hands buried deep in his pockets, his face a storm of conflicting emotions, eyes betraying both tenderness and frustration. "You've been dodging my calls." Not a question, a statement filled with quiet hurt. "I just got a new phone today," she replied, her voice deliberately measured, a fragile dam holding back a flood. "I wasn't avoiding you, Lucas." His jaw tightened visibly, muscles flexing under skin, but he nodded once. "Can I come in?" The hesitation lasted only a heartbeat before she stepped aside. He moved past her, his presence immediately filling the small space as she shut the door with a soft click that felt oddly final. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, the words hanging in the air between them. Lucas turned, his brow creasing. Why? Because of him? Tiffany exhaled, the sound somewhere between a sigh and surrender. "Because everything feels like it's collapsing, and I don't have the strength for another earthquake." "I didn't come to create aftershocks," he said, his voice deliberately gentle. I needed to see if you're okay." She folded her arms across her chest, a shield against vulnerability. "I'm fine." Lucas tilted his head, eyes boring into hers with an intensity that made her want to look away. "Are you?" Her gaze dropped, fingers unconsciously tracing patterns on her arm. "I don't know, okay? Everything's shattered into pieces I don't recognize, and I just need space to breathe." Lucas exhaled heavily, dragging a hand through his hair, frustration and concern battling for dominance. "I understand that. I do, but Tiffany..." He paused, closing the distance between them, voice dropping to an intimate murmur. "You have to see he's destroying you, right?" Her head snapped up. "Don't." He didn't retreat. "I'm deadly serious. There's something dangerous in him. Maybe not today, but someday he's going to break more than just your heart." Her throat constricted. "You don't know him." "I know enough." Another step closer, his voice both steel and silk. "And more importantly, I know you. You think you're bound to him by some invisible chain, but you're not. You deserve someone who builds you up instead of leaving you in ruins." Something in his words, the raw conviction, the absolute certainty, sent tremors through her carefully constructed defenses. He stood close enough now that she could see flecks of gold in his eyes, close enough to catch the faint scent of cedar and rain. "Lucas. I mean, every word," he murmured, voice dropping to a whisper that seemed to brush against her skin. "You deserve someone who makes you feel safe, not someone who leaves you constantly bracing for impact." His eyes dropped to her lips for the briefest moment before returning to her gaze, hesitation and question written across his features. Not pushing, not demanding, simply offering, waiting, granting her the power to choose. When Tiffany remained rooted in place, neither advancing nor retreating, he closed the final inches between them, fingers whispering against her skin as he leaned in knock. Knock. Tiffany's heart slammed against her ribs. Lucas froze, mere inches from her lips, eyes searching hers for answers she couldn't articulate. Another knock, this one thunderous, demanding. Tiffany drew in a shaky breath, stepping back. "I should get that." Lucas dragged a hand down his face, nodding, but something darkened in his expression, something unreadable and intense. She moved to the door, dread coiling in her stomach like a poisonous snake. The second she pulled it open, time seemed to crystallize. Zane. He stood there, immaculate as always, white roses clutched in a white-knuckled grip. But the moment his gaze cut past her, straight into the apartment where Lucas stood, his expression transformed into something feral and cold. The flowers crumpled in his grip as his eyes dragged back to her, taking in her state of undress, nothing but an oversized t-shirt barely skimming her thighs, and his jaw locked so tight she could almost hear the grinding of teeth. "What the hell is this?" Tiffany's lips parted, but before sound could escape, Zane pushed past her, his entire body radiating dangerous energy. His eyes locked onto Lucas with lethal focus. "You're in her apartment?" His voice was razor-edged, deceptively quiet. "While she's dressed like this?" Lucas straightened, maintaining composed dignity. "I stopped by to talk." Zane's laugh was a short, vicious sound devoid of humor. "Right, to talk." His gaze sliced back to Tiffany, voice dropping to something almost predatory. "Is that what we're calling it now?" Tiffany stepped between them, frustration burning in her chest. "Zane, stop! It's not what you're imagining." Zane's glare never wavered. "No? Then illuminate me." Lucas sighed, shaking his head. "I was checking on her well-being. And that's suddenly your responsibility?" Zane's words dripped with toxic contempt. "Because last I checked, she doesn't need a goddamn white knight." Lucas frowned deeply. "You think that's what this is?" Zane's lip curled. "I think you've been circling like a vulture, waiting for your opening." Lucas's jaw tensed, a muscle jumping beneath the skin. "And I think you're too threatened to accept that someone might genuinely care about her welfare." Zane advanced another step. "You don't get to speak on matters you can't comprehend." Tiffany thrust her hands between them. "Enough, both of you!" But electricity crackled in the air, neither man willing to back down from the brewing storm. Lucas exhaled sharply, shaking his head as if conceding the futility of argument. Then, with devastating simplicity, he turned to Tiffany and said softly, "Tell me I'm wrong." She swallowed hard, words deserting her. Lucas moved closer, his voice barely audible now. "Tell me he's what your soul needs." Her throat constricted painfully. Lucas's eyes softened, his hand gently cupping her arm with reverent care. "All I want is for you to find peace, Tiffany." She released a trembling breath, her pulse thundering. And then he leaned in. There was nothing rushed in his movement, nothing forceful or demanding. It was deliberate, tentative, a question more than a claim, giving her every chance to pull away. But she remained still. His lips brushed against hers, soft as a promise, and for one suspended moment, everything beyond them blurred into insignificance. Then, suddenly, the bouquet of roses hit the floor with a soft, devastating thud. The silence that followed was suffocating. Tiffany's breath caught in her lungs, her gaze darting between the two men. Zane stood motionless, his expression carved from stone, his fists clenched with such force that his knuckles gleamed white, his chest rising and falling with controlled violence. Tiffany remained frozen, the tension crushing the air from the room. Her pulse hammered in her throat, and she couldn't determine whether to shatter the silence or flee from its weight. And just like that, everything was about to erupt. Chapter 9, Fire and Fury. Zane stood paralyzed, his mind struggling to reconcile the catastrophic image seared into his retinas. Tiffany, Lucas, the infinitesimal space between their lips that might as well have been a chasm of betrayal. His breathing fractured into jagged, uneven bursts, fingernails carving crescents into his palms. His heart hammered with such violence it threatened to shatter his ribcage, his entire form locked in suspended animation. A man whose consciousness lagged dangerously behind the unthinkable truth unfolding before him. Then reality crashed through him with the force of a tidal wave. That damn Mother Messer just kissed Tiffany! His vision pulsed crimson at the edges, a murderous haze descending as he took one deliberate step forward, each word that followed emerging like toxic magma from a long-dormant volcano. What the hell just happened? Neither answered. Lucas remained unmoving, unflinching under his gaze, while Tiffany looked gutted, the color drained from her face as though she stood at the precipice of collapse. Zane's chest heaved with each labored breath as bitter laughter tore from his throat, sharp enough to draw blood. Nah, see, I knew this crap. I goddamn knew it. From the moment you materialized in her life again, I saw through your charade. You didn't come back out of noble concern. You came back because you've always wanted what's mine. Lucas made no attempt to deny the accusation. And that silent confirmation ignited something primal and savage in Zane's blood. He advanced closer, voice saturated with lethal venom. You think I'm blind? You think I couldn't see through your transparent goddamn performance? Every calculated glance in her direction. Every instance you played the sympathetic friend while waiting to execute your real agenda. I saw it all. His voice splintered with unbridled fury, raw enough to leave splinters. And I was damn right all along. Lucas's jaw hardened to granite. He wasn't yielding an inch of ground. I do want her, Lucas admitted, his voice unwavering, resolute. I always have. His gaze flickered momentarily to Tiffany before returning to meet Zane's with defiant intensity. And I harbor no remorse for that truth. Zane's entire being vibrated with barely contained violence, his breathing erratic and shallow. You treacherous son of a... Zane, stop! Tiffany's voice sliced through the suffocating tension, but it came too late. The dam had already shattered. You stand in the sanctuary of my woman's home, your lips on hers, and you expect rational goddamn discourse? Zane's voice fractured, revealing something far beyond rage. Something devastating and viscerally wounded clawing through his armor. No, screw that delusion. You calculated every move. You knew precisely what she means to me, and you executed this betrayal anyway. Lucas's voice remained measured, but steel reinforced every syllable. And what consideration have you given to what she wants? Zane barked out a contemptuous sound. Don't pretend you give a solitary damn. I give every damn imaginable, Lucas countered, finally matching Zane's ferocity, more than your narcissistic mind could comprehend. He closed the distance between them until mere inches remained, his voice dropping to something deadly quiet. You honestly believe you're what she needs? You think this, he gestured at the explosive atmosphere suffocating the room, is what love looks like? His jaw clenched with righteous anger. You terrify her, Zane. She exists in perpetual uncertainty about which version of you she'll face from one moment to the next. That's not love, that's psychological warfare. Zane recoiled as though physically struck. Tiffany's breath hitched audibly, her eyes widening. Lucas, don't. No, these are truths he needs to hear. Lucas persisted, his voice unyielding. Love isn't manufactured from such volatile unpredictability that the person you claim to cherish lies suspended between devotion and fear. It's not about possession, Zane. She doesn't belong to you like property to be claimed. Zane advanced with predatory slowness, and now his voice emerged with terrifying, unnatural calm. You don't possess the right to lecture me about love? Lucas's eyes darkened to stormy depths. No? Then allow me to crystallize one fundamental truth. His voice remained disturbingly composed. You treat her like a conquest, like her presence in your life is evidence of your victory. But she's not a trophy to display as testament to your power. She's a human being, Zane. And if your love was genuine, you'd understand that loving her isn't sufficient when that love comes laced with poison. Something primordial snapped. Zane's fist connected with Lucas's jaw with such violent speed that Tiffany barely registered the movement before Lucas staggered backward, hand flying to his face. But recovery came swift. Lucas lunged with unexpected force, colliding with Zane's body, sending them both crashing against the coffee table with enough impact to fracture wood and shatter a nearby limb. Stop it! Tiffany screamed, desperately attempting to wedge herself between them, but her pleas evaporated into the chaos. Fists became weapons. Grunts transformed into primal war cries. Furniture scraped and crashed as their bodies careened through the small space. Zane hurled Lucas backward with savage strength, his breathing ragged and feral. You know nothing about what exists between us. Lucas swiped crimson from his split lip, eyes blazing. And you remain willfully blind to who she truly is. Zane released a guttural roar and launched himself forward again, their bodies colliding with enough force to send them both crashing to the ground. Glass shattered. Tiffany's desperate screams pierced the air. But neither man registered anything beyond their mutual hatred. Because this confrontation, This violence had been gathering momentum for far longer than either would admit. Final chapter. The last word. Tiffany huddled on the couch, a shadow against shadows, watching the city lights flicker like distant stars behind rain-streaked glass. 25 years old today. Another orbit complete. The apartment stood silent. No streamers, no cake, no celebration. Just the hollow echo of unanswered messages blinking on her phone. 2 weeks of chaos had culminated in this perfect solitude. The knock startled her. 3 soft raps that might as well have been thunderclaps. She moved to the door with leaden steps, peering through the peephole. Her heart lurched painfully against her ribs. Lucas. He stood in the hallway, shoulders hunched slightly as if bracing for impact, clutching a small box wrapped in silver paper. Uncertainty shadowed his usually confident features. Tiffany hesitated, one hand pressed flat against the door, before finally turning the lock. "I know I'm probably the last person you want to see right now," he said, his voice rough at the edges. He extended the box like an offering. "I just wanted to make sure you got this." Something in his eyes, that familiar intensity that had always unraveled her, made her step back. "You might as well come in," she said, the words barely audible. Surprise flickered across his face before he stepped inside, bringing with him the scent of rain and that cologne she'd once known by heart. His gaze swept across the darkened apartment. "No celebration?" A bitter laugh escaped her. What exactly would I be celebrating? The weight of everything unsaid hung between them as Lucas placed the gift on her coffee table with careful precision. "Happy birthday, Tiffany." She wrapped her arms around herself, studying the man who had once been her entire world, the man who had walked away, the man who had returned to upend everything. The words erupted from her like lava. "You kissed me right in front of him." Lucas met her gaze unflinchingly. "Yes. You had to know what that would do, what it would cause." "I did," he admitted, a muscle tightening in his jaw. "And I'd make the same choice again." Her breath caught, suspended in the suddenly electric air. Lucas closed the distance between them, each step deliberate. The apartment seemed to shrink around them. "Tiffany, I've never stopped loving you. Not for a single day." His voice dropped, heavy with conviction. "I destroyed what we had. I know that. But I'm not that person anymore." His eyes locked with hers. "I swear to you, I won't break you again." "Lucas." His name emerged as barely a whisper. She tried to look away, but he took her hand, his touch igniting sparks along her skin. "He doesn't deserve you," Lucas said, each word a stone dropping into still water. "He makes you doubt yourself. He makes you tremble." His thumb traced circles on her palm. "I never will." Something twisted painfully in her chest, grief or longing or some terrible fusion of both. He leaned in with exquisite slowness, offering her every chance to retreat, to refuse him. She didn't move. His lips found hers, tender yet urgent, tasting of rain and promises. Years of memories flooded through her veins. This time, she surrendered, her hands finding his face as she kissed him back with all the confusion and desire she'd been drowning in. Then, 3 sharp knocks shattered the moment. Tiffany wrenched away, eyes wide with recognition. Lucas exhaled slowly, running fingers through his hair as understanding darkened his expression. They both knew. Her legs trembled as she crossed to the door and pulled it open. Zane stood framed in the doorway, clutching a tiny, perfectly wrapped box and a bottle of her favorite Cabernet. The moment his eyes found Lucas behind her, registered their proximity, her flushed cheeks, her swollen lips, his expression calcified. A laugh escaped him, hollow and caustic. "So we're doing this again, are we?" Tiffany's throat constricted. "Zane?" He lifted a hand, silencing her as he stepped inside and closed the door with painful gentleness. When he spoke, his voice was eerily controlled, but his eyes blazed. "Tell me the truth, Tiffany. Are we still trapped in this endless loop?" "It's not a game," Lucas growled, shoulders tensing like a predator. Zane turned to him, mask slipping to reveal raw fury. "You don't make any damn sense to me, Lucas. You abandoned her." His voice cracked, exposing the wound beneath his anger. "You vanished without explanation. You pretended you could be friends. You walked away while she shattered, and now you're back claiming what you threw away? His breath hitched. I was there. I gathered up the pieces you left behind. I held her while she cried over you. Lucas took a step forward, hands clenched at his sides. You think I wanted to leave? I was a goddamn fool, all right? I made the worst mistake of my life, but I came back because she's everything to me. Everything. His voice dropped to a dangerous pitch. I never stopped loving her. Not for a moment. Zane's eyes narrowed, pain transforming into something sharper, darker. You think you can just reappear and erase what happened? You think it's that simple? His voice rose. You abandoned her, Lucas. You helped her rebuild herself, then you disappeared. Do you have any concept of what that did to her? Do you know what it was like watching her question everything about us while your ghost haunted every room? Tiffany flinched, each truth landing like a physical blow. They were both right, both wrong. And she hated her role in this wreckage, hated how Zane spoke of having to salvage what Lucas destroyed, as if she were a project rather than a person. Yet Lucas had no right to reclaim territory he'd willingly surrendered. You don't get to stroll back into her life and declare everything fixed, Zane continued, voice trembling with barely contained rage. If you want her, Lucas, then earn her. Prove it. You can't erase years with a kiss and pretty words. Lucas stood his ground, meeting Zane's fury with quiet certainty. I'm not asking for your blessing, Zane, but hear me clearly. I'm not going anywhere. Not again. Not ever. The tension crackled between them, weeks of unspoken accusations and ancient hurts converging in this single, unbearable moment. Tiffany stood frozen between them, heart splintered, mind racing to process everything they'd unleashed. Finally, Zane broke first. His voice dropped to something near a whisper, defeat threading through his words. You know what, Lucas? He inhaled deeply, anger still simmering beneath his controlled tone. I'm done. I'm finished fighting this battle. If Tiffany wants me in her life, she knows exactly where to find me. Something shifted in his expression, a door closing. But I won't beg for scraps of her attention. I deserve better than that. I'm done. Tiffany's heart stuttered. She opened her mouth, desperate to stop him, but the words dissolved on her tongue. I never asked you to fight for me, she finally managed, her voice fracturing around the truth. Zane turned one last time, his eyes meeting hers, cold on the surface, but swimming with something deeper, something wounded. I know, he said, the words barely audible. That's the problem. He paused. You know where I'll be. He opened the door, stepped through, and closed it with devastating finality. Silence crashed over the apartment. Tiffany stared at the closed door, feeling the weight of both gifts, unopened, unacknowledged, pressing against her consciousness. Lucas waited, giving her the space to process, to breathe. I'm sorry it happened this way, he finally said, his voice gentle. But I meant every word. I'm not leaving again, Tiffany. Not unless you tell me to go. Tiffany closed her eyes, exhaling a breath that seemed to carry pieces of herself with it. I don't know what I want anymore. I know, Lucas whispered, vulnerability raw in his voice. But I'll be here when you figure it out, for as long as it takes. She turned to look at him, at this man who had both broken and remade her heart, and wondered if some questions were destined to remain unanswered. The night stretched before them, filled with possibilities and ghosts. Sometimes, love isn't just about the person you're with. It's about the baggage that comes with them. Do you think people can truly change, or is it easier to go back to what we know? Drop your thoughts in the comments.
These walls to keep the fire out. Will you still knock like you're full of doubt? Your shadow slips beneath my door, reminds me what I try to ignore. doesn't burn, it doesn't twist, it doesn't turn. But here you are like some old flame, trying to set fire to my name.
Thank you so much for spending your evening with me for love in all its forms. These stories remind us that love isn't always easy or perfect. Sometimes it's raw, complicated, and even confusing, but it's always powerful. I hope tonight gave you a deeper look at the many faces of love, and maybe even sparked something in you. To all my poetics out there, I'm still here in the chat, so tell me, which story stayed with you the most? Which one made you feel something you didn't expect? I'd love to hear it. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to subscribe and follow me for more stories, updates, and future lives. Until next time, keep loving, keep growing, and remember, love comes in all forms. Stay poetic, poetics. Bye!
It doesn't always come with flowers or quiet walks beneath the stars. Sometimes it shows up in the chaos, sometimes it leaves behind a scar. But in the fire or in the calm, in every shadow, every dawn, this is love in all its forms, in broken hearts and open doors, in the silence, in the storms, in every tear, in every warmth. It's not always what we dreamed, but it's always what we need. This is love in all its forms. It might begin with butterflies, or end before it says goodbye. It might feel wrong, it might feel right. It might keep you up at night, but it's the lesson and the flame, the one we lose, the one we claim. And this is love in all its forms, in broken hearts and open doors, in the silence, in the storms, in every tear, in every warmth. It's not always what we dreamed, but it's always what we need. This is love in all its forms. So hold the joy and hold the ache, every shape that love can take. And in the silence, in the storms, in every tear and every warmth, it's not always what we dreamed, but it's always what we need. This is love in all its forms. In all its forms. It might begin with butterflies, or end before it says